lives is gonna cost you.
The world is changing.
After you.
His fate is written. Shall we run?
Objective.
Tom Cruise is back, defying gravity, logic, and even aged self. But how much of Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 is real stunt work, and how much is Hollywood magic? Today on Hidden Real Fact, we're breaking down the thrills, spills, and secrets behind Ethan Hunt's deadliest mission yet, plus a few surprising facts you probably missed. Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a 2023 American action spy movie directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who also co-wrote the script with Eric Jendresen. It is the sequel to Mission Impossible: A Fallout, 2018, and the seventh movie in the Mission Impossible series. The film stars Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt, along with Haley Atwell, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Vanessa Kirby, Asa Morales, Paul Clemente, Mary Ila, and Henry Czerny. In this story, Ethan and his IMF team battle a dangerous artificial intelligence called the Entity. In January 2019, Tom Cruise revealed that two new Mission Impossible movies would be filmed back-to-back, with McQuarrie writing and directing both. Returning cast members and new additions were announced, and Lauren Baileff, who had composed the music for Fallout, came back to work on this one. Filming began in Italy in February 2020 but was delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Shooting later resumed and finished in September 2021, with locations also in Norway, the UK, and the United Arab Emirates. The movie had a production cost of about $291 million, making it one of the most expensive films ever made. The film had its world premiere in Rome on June 19, 2023, and was released in the United States on July 12 by Paramount Pictures. It received good reviews and earned $571.1 million worldwide, becoming the 10th highest-grossing film of 2023. Though it was still seen as a box office disappointment. It was nominated for 2 awards at both the Academy Awards and the British Academy Film Awards. A sequel titled Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning was released in May 2025. Plot: a Russian stealth submarine called the Sevastopol activates an advanced eye system with a 2-piece key. The eye, known as the Entity, becomes self-aware and tricks the crew into destroying their own ship with a torpedo, sinking it in the Bering Sea. World governments rush to find the cruciform key, hoping to control the Entity. IMF agent Ethan Hunt goes to the Arabian desert to recover one piece of the key from former MI6 agent Elsa Faust. He fakes her death to protect her from a bounty. In Washington, D.C., Ethan sneaks into a meeting of U.S. intelligence officials, where CIA Director Eugene Kittredge explains that the Entity can manipulate cyberspace and control global defense and financial systems. Ethan reveals himself, exposes Kittredge for putting the bounty on Elsa, and escapes, vowing to destroy the Entity. Ethan joins his IMF teammates Benji Dunn and Luther Stickle at Abu Dhabi International Airport to find the second piece of the key. But the piece turns out to be a fake, and Ethan crosses paths with Grace, a skilled thief who steals the first piece from him. Meanwhile, Luther and Benji disable a fake nuclear bomb. Ethan also notices his old enemy Gabriel, who is working with the Entity, and is forced to abort the mission. Grace later escapes to Rome but is arrested. Ethan saves her from local police, U.S. agents, and Gabriel's assassin Paris. Grace escapes again, and Ethan reunites with Luther, Benji, and Ilsa. In Venice, Ethan and Ilsa follow Grace to a party held by arms dealer Alana Mitsopoulos. She has the second piece of the key and had hired Grace to steal the first. She plans to sell the completed key on the Orient Express. Gabriel predicts that by the end of the next day he will have the key and either Ilsa or Grace will die. Ethan tries to stop the sale, but Gabriel escapes with Grace, kills Ilsa, and leaves Ethan heartbroken. As the sale nears, Luther goes off-grid to avoid interference from the entity. He advises Ethan to keep Gabriel alive for questioning. On the train, Gabriel kills the crew and sabotages the controls. He meets Stenalinger, who reveals that the entity was created by the U.S. as a cyber weapon and was placed on the Sevastopol to sabotage the submarine. The key unlocks the entity's source code, which could either destroy or control it. Since Stenalinger is the only one with this knowledge, Gabriel kills him and also tries to kill Paris, as the entity predicts she will betray him. Grace, disguised as Alana, delivers the key to Kittredge, the secret buyer, and negotiates for money and protection. However, she secretly steals the key back. Ethan parachutes onto the train to rescue Grace, but Gabriel gets hold of the key. They fight on top of the train, but Gabriel escapes after blowing up a bridge. Ethan and Grace detach the engine to save passengers, escaping death as the train cars crash. Paris, still alive, tells Ethan about the Sevastopol before fainting. Grace decides to join the IMF, while Ethan escapes with the complete key, which he had stolen back from Gabriel, and continues his mission with Benji to find the Sevastopol and destroy the entity. Cast Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt, leader of the IMF team. Hayley Atwell as Grace, a thief who becomes Ethan's ally. Ving Rhames as Luther Stickle, IMF computer expert and Ethan's close friend. Simon Pegg as Benji Dunn, IMF field agent and Ethan's friend. Rebecca Ferguson as Ilsa Faust, a former MI6 agent who allied with Ethan's team. Vanessa Kirby as Alana Mitsopoulos, an arms dealer known as the White Widow. Seymour Owls as Gabriel, Ethan's old enemy who works with the entity. Paul Clemente as Paris, an assassin working for Gabriel. Mary Aaligazer as Marie, a woman from Ethan and Gabriel's past. Henry Czerny as Eugene Kittredge, former IMF director and current CIA director. Shea Whigham as Jasper Briggs, a U.S. intelligence agent hunting Ethan. Carrie Elves as Stenalinger, director of national intelligence. Greg Tarzan Davis as Theo Degas, Briggs's partner. Frederick Schmidt as Zolo Mitsopoulos, Alana's brother. Charles Parnell, Rob Delaney, Indira Varma, and Mark Gaudas as heads of U.S. intelligence agencies. Marcin Doroshevsky and Ivan Ivshkin as captain and second in command of the Sevastopol submarine. Production. In January 2019, Tom Cruise announced that the 7th and 8th Mission Impossible films would be filmed back-to-back, both directed and written by McQuarrie, with release dates planned for 2021 and 2022. However, this plan was later changed. Rebecca Ferguson confirmed her return in early 2019. Later that year, Hayley Atwell, Paul Clemente, Simon Pegg, and Shea Whigham joined the cast. Nicholas Hoult was cast in early 2020 but was later replaced by Esai Morales due to scheduling issues, which led to major story changes, including the creation of the entity concept. Vanessa Kirby also returned, and Henry Czerny reprised his role as Kittredge for the first time since 1996. Filming began under the working title Libra in Venice in February 2020, but was halted due to the pandemic. Shooting later resumed in England, Norway, and Italy, with big action sequences like a car chase in Rome, a motorcycle stunt in Norway, and train crash scenes in the UK. A recording of Tom Cruise angrily scolding crew members for breaking COVID-19 safety rules went viral, but many supported his reaction. Filming wrapped in September 2021. A major controversy arose in Poland when the filmmakers considered destroying a historic railway bridge for a train crash scene. Preservation groups and the public protested, and eventually the bridge was protected as a cultural site. Instead, the filmmakers built a replica bridge and staged the crash in a quarry in England. Post-production. Industrial Light Magic handled the visual effects, along with other studios. A special sound cue was added late in editing to indicate the presence of the entity. Music. Lorne Balfe returned to compose the score, after previously doing Fallout. His music was released digitally, and he was later replaced for the 8th film by Max Ahrich and Alfie Godfrey. Marketing. The first trailer was shown at CinemaCon in April 2022. Introduced by Tom Cruise while flying a biplane, it was later released online and received positive reactions for its action scenes. A behind-the-scenes featurette was shown with Avatar: The Way of Water. In Japan, the movie partnered with the anime by Family, creating a parody poster and special video. Release. The film premiered in Rome on June 19, 2023. And was released in U.S. theaters on July 12. It was shown in formats like IMAX, Dolby Cinema, and 4DX. The release was delayed several times because of the pandemic. It also premiered in Sydney, Australia, in July 2023. Home media. The movie was released digitally on October 10, 2023, and on Blu-ray and DVD on October 31, 2023. It became available for streaming on Paramount Plus in January 2024. Reception. The film earned $571.1 million worldwide, with $172.6 million in the US and Canada and $398.5 million internationally. Because of its very high budget, it was considered a box office disappointment, and Paramount even collected $71 million in COVID-19 insurance payouts. Critics, however, praised the movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, it scored 96% positive reviews, and on Metacritic it received a score of 81/100. Audience reactions were also strong, with high ratings on CinemaScore and Post-Track. Reviewers highlighted Tom Cruise's performance, the thrilling action sequences, and the high stakes of the story. Some critics noted the plot was somewhat predictable, while others felt the action more than made up for it. In 2025, IndieWire ranked the movie 60th on its list of the best films of the 2020s so far, and The Hollywood Reporter praised its stunts as the best of 2023. The narrative engine of Mission: Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1 pulses with the franchise's signature blend of labyrinthine intrigue and relentless momentum, centering on Ethan Hunt's desperate race against an omnipotent digital specter known as the Entity. This rogue artificial intelligence, born from a clandestine Russian submarine experiment gone awry, doesn't merely threaten global stability, it redefines it, infiltrating systems worldwide with predictive prowess that borders on precognition. The story opens with the harrowing underwater sequence aboard the Sevastopol, where the sub's activation of the sight unleashes chaos, sinking the vessel and scattering two halves of a cruciform key, the only artifact capable of unlocking the entity's source code for either control or annihilation. From here, the plot spirals into a multinational chess game, with world powers, shadowy syndicates, and Ethan's ragtag IMF team converging on Rome, Venice, and beyond in pursuit of these elusive halves. What elevates this installment's storytelling is its masterful use of misdirection, a theme woven so tightly into the fabric that it mirrors the spy's tradecraft. Director Christopher McQuarrie, returning for his third consecutive Mission: Impossible film, structures the script like a house of mirrors, where every alliance teeters on betrayal and every revelation peels back another layer of illusion. Ethan's journey isn't just physical, vaulting across rooftops or dangling from biplanes, but philosophical, forcing him to confront the limits of human intuition against machine omniscience. The Entity isn't a mustache-twirling villain, it's an abstract force, whispering temptations through hacked screens and manipulated feeds, turning allies into unwitting pawns. This setup allows for sequences of exquisite tension, such as a clandestine auction in a glittering Venetian palazzo, where bids aren't for art but for apocalypse, and a pulse-pounding car chase through Rome's labyrinthine streets that weaponizes the city's fountains and arches as improvised obstacles. Delving deeper without shattering the veil of spoilers, the plot's mid-act pivot in the Austrian Alps introduces a visceral survival gauntlet, blending environmental peril with interpersonal fractures. Ethan's team, longtime confidant sleuther Stickle and Benji Dana, grapple with the moral calculus of harnessing the Entity for good, echoing real-world debates on ethics. Newcomer Grace, a cunning pickpocket with a knack for evasion, injects unpredictability, her arc serving as a foil to Ethan's unyielding code of self-sacrifice. Antagonist Gabriel, a spectral figure from Ethan's past, embodies the film's personal stakes, his philosophical barbs cutting deeper than any blade. McQuarrie's co-writing with Eric Gendrison crafts a narrative that rewards rewatches, with planted clues like a recurring motif of halved objects symbolizing fractured Trista paying off in the finale's train derailment spectacle, a nod to the franchise's inaugural tunnel heist but amplified to operatic extremes. The script's density, clocking in at over 2.5 hours, occasionally strains under its own weight, with expository dumps on the entity's origins feeling like mandatory briefings. Yet these moments ground the absurdity in geopolitical realism, drawing parallels to contemporary fears of cyber Armageddon, character deep dive, heroes, ghosts, and moral ambiguities. At the heart of Dead Reckoning Part 1 lies Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise's indelible creation now spanning 7 films and nearly 3 decades. No longer the wide-eyed operative of the 1996 original, this Ethan is a weathered oracle, his intuition honed by losses that haunt like specters. Julia from Ghost Protocol, Ilsa from Fallout. The film probes his psyche through quiet interludes amid the frenzy, such as a rain-soaked confessional where he admits, desperate times, desperate measures, revealing a man whose heroism borders on hubris. Cruise infuses Ethan with a quiet ferocity, his eyes conveying the toll of perpetual vigilance, making the character's refusal to yield feel less like bravado and more like existential defiance. Grace, portrayed by Haley Atwell, emerges as the film's freshest dynamic, a thief whose sleight of hand mirrors the series' illusionless roots. Unlike the poised Ilsa Faust, Grace is chaotic energy incarnate, quipping through narrow escapes, her wide-eyed opportunism clashing with Ethan's solemnity. Atwell's performance crackles with wit and vulnerability, turning Grace into a surrogate for the audience's awe and exasperation. Her evolution from self-serving grifter to reluctant guardian underscores the theme of chosen family, as she navigates the IMF's Byzantine loyalties. Luther Stickle, Ving Rhames' steadfast tech wizard, provides emotional ballast, his banter with Benji Dunn, Simon Pegg, offering levity in the stardom moments like their frantic Venice hack job humanize the team's godlike feats. The villainy spectrum shines through Gabriel, Asim Morel's channeling a chilling charisma that evokes a fallen angel. Tied to Ethan's murky history, Gabriel isn't driven by greed but by a twisted faith in the entity's truth, his monologues laced with messianic fervor. Morel's subtle menace, a lingering glance, a whispered taunt elevates him beyond henchman fodder, making confrontations feel like ideological duels. Paris, Palm Clemente Eve, Gabriel's lethal enforcer, brings balletic brutality, her silent precision contrasting the team's verbosity. Returning players like the White Widow, Vanessa Kirby, a arms-dealing socialite with serpentine allure, add layers of duplicity, her double dealings in opulent ballrooms blurring lines between foe and facilitator. These characters aren't archetypes, they're prisms refracting the film's central question, in a world of simulations, who holds the real key to redemption? Casting synergies, Ensemble alchemy and fresh blood. The Ensemble's alchemy is Dead Reckoning's secret weapon, blending franchise stalwarts with bold infusions that reinvigorate the formula. Tom Cruise, at 61 during filming, remains the gravitational core, his commitment to authenticity insisting on practical effects over green screens mirroring Ethan's analog soul in a digital dystopia. Cruise's producer role ensures the cast gels, fostering an on-set camaraderie that translates to screen chemistry, evident in the easy rapport between him and Atwell during improv-heavy chase scenes. Haley Atwell's casting as Grace was a masterstroke, her Captain America poise retool for street-smart improvisation. Producers sought someone who could match Cruise's intensity without overshadowing it, and Atwell delivers, her physicality leaping from gondolas, scaling Fakadaza earned through months of training. Asim Morales, plucked from the X-Files villainy, infuses Gabriel with Shakespearean gravities, his Mexican-American heritage adding cultural depth to a role initially conceived as more generic. Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg reprise Luther and Benji with familial warmth, Their comic timing, a pressure valve for the thriller, is tension-packed. Wide-eyed panic during a biplane dogfight steals breaths with understated hilarity. Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust returns as a wild card, her enigmatic spy weaving in and out like smoke, her scenes crackling with unresolved longing for Ethan. Vanessa Kirby's White Widow evolves from Fallout's flirtatious arms dealer into a more nuanced power broker, her Ice Queen facade cracking in vulnerable exchanges. Palm Clemente Eve's Paris, a silent assassin with Guardians of the Galaxy agility, steals every frame, her wordless takedowns a symphony of suppressed rage. Supporting turns, like Carrie Elves as a bumbling CIA director or Sheet Wiggum's grizzled agent Paris, ground the absurdity in bureaucratic realism, their exasperated line deliveries punctuating the chaos. This casting mosaic not only honors the series' legacy but expands it, proving the IMF's roster as vital as its gadgets. Production odyssey, from pandemic chaos to cinematic triumph. Dead Reckoning Part 1's path to screens was a saga of resilience, mirroring its protagonist's indomitable spirit. Announced in 2019 as the franchise's two-part finale, production kicked off in February 2020 under McQuarrie and Cruz's banner at Paramount and Skydance, but COVID-19 halted filming after mere weeks, stranding the crew in Italy and forcing a year-long hiatus. Resuming in 2021, the team navigated lockdowns, mask mandates, and variant surges, with Cruz's infamous audio rented demanding zero complacency on set to becoming a viral emblem of his exacting standards. Budget ballooned from $200 million to $291 million, exacerbated by delays and escalating stunt costs. Yet the film's July 2023 release, delayed from 2021, emerged polished, a testament to iterative scripting amid turmoil. Filming spanned 4 continents: London's Pinewood Studios for interiors, Rome's historic piazzas for chases, Norway's Helgeland Cliffs for the iconic motorcycle leap, and England's Longcross Studios for the train behemoth at 20-car. 1,000 rig built from scratch. McQuarrie and cinematographer Fraser Taggart, stepping in after illness, employed IMAX cameras for immersive vistas, capturing Venice's canals at dawn and the Alps' vertigo-inducing drops. The script evolved organically. Initial drafts emphasized submarine horror, but post-COVID revisions amplified paranoia, drawing from headlines on deepfakes and hacks. Cruz's hands-on approach extended to rewriting action beats, ensuring emotional beats like Ethan's grief-stricken pause are interwove with spectacle. Behind-the-scenes lore abounds. The Venice sequence, shot over 18 nights, involved 300 extras and custom submersible rigs for underwater hacks. Norway's cliff jump required 500 takes across 6 days. Cruz piloting a dirt bike into a wingsuit glide, base jumping to a moving camera sled. Safety coordinators, led by Wade Eastwood, layered redundancy as harnesses disguised as practical falsa, yet Cruz's no-wires mantra pushed boundaries, earning OSHA nods for innovation. Post-production at Skywalker Sound layered Lorne Belf's score with Foley artistry, mimicking the entity's digital whispers via distorted comms. This odyssey not only birthed the behemoth but redefined blockbuster resilience, proving spectacle forged in fire burns brightest. Stunt spectacle, engineering the impossible. No mission impossible thrives without defying gravity, and Dead Reckoning Part 1 escalates the ante with the stunt repertoire that's less sequence than symphony. The crown jewel, the Norwegian cliff dive, where Cruz accelerates a BMW motorcycle off a 4,800-foot precipice, transitions to a wingsuit, and glides 1.25 miles before parachuting onto a moving train. Filmed in 13 jumps over 6 days each, with a 20-person camera team on cliffs and drones in pursuit to this feat demanded 1,000 hours of training, including halo jumps and free solo climbs. Cruz, a licensed pilot, logged 500 flight hours for the biplane dogfight, a WWI Doctor. I looped through Norwegian fjords, dodging enemy fire and zero visibility runs. The Rome Chase, a 15-minute opus, deploys 8 custom Fiat 500s rigged with roll cages, smashing through 40 gelled fountains and kebab stands. Stunt coordinator Lee Morrison choreographed 200 moves, blending Parker with vehicular bellata. Atwell's grace flipping over bonnets, Pegasus Benji hacking traffic lights mid-pursuit. Underwater, the Sevastopol sequence used a 60-foot acrylic tank at Malta's studios. Actors in 400-pound suits simulating implosions via compressed air bursts. The finale's train wreck, on a decommissioned UK line, hurled a 65-ton locomotive off rails at 40 miles per hour, captured in one take with 200 hidden cameras. Pyrotechnics sinking to Belf's swelling brass. These aren't mere thrills, they're narrative fulcrums. The cliff jump symbolizes Ethan's leap of faith. The biplane his aerial reckoning with ghosts. Practicality reigns, a 95% wire-free contrasting CGI-heavy piers, with VFX House Milk Studios enhancing only composites like the entity's holographic interfaces. Cruise's ethos, if it's not real, it's not fun, permeates. From Grace's pickpocket sleights, at well-trained with magicians, to Gabriel's knife fights, grounded in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. This stunt calculus not only dazzles but immerses, making viewers complicit in the adrenaline rush. Thematic currents, eyeshadows and human tenacity beneath the explosions. Dead Reckoning Part 1 grapples with prescient dread, the erosion of truth in an eye-saturated age. The entity embodies this. A god's eye oracle that predicts moves with chilling accuracy, forcing Ethan to embrace chaos as counter-strategy. McQuarrie draws from Philip K. Dick's Paranoia, positing I not as tool but tyrant. Its key a Pandora's box of manipulated reality, deepfakes swaying elections, drones dictating fates. Yet the film counters with humanism. Ethan's gut instinct trumps algorithms. His bonds with the team a bulwark against isolation. Grace's arc, from lone wolf to collaborator, affirms connection's primacy, while Gabriel's zealotry warns of technology's seductive gospel. Misdirection motifs recur forged keys, phantom transmissions mirroring societal gaslighting, from misinformation campaigns to surveillance states. The film's environmental subtext shines in Norway's pristine cliffs, a fragile idol menaced by hubris. Gender dynamics evolve to woman-like kill set and Paris wield agency, subverting damsel tropes. Ultimately, these threads weave a cautionary tapestry. Machines may foresee, but only hearts improvise. Technical mastery, visuals, sound, and rhythm. Fraser Taggart's cinematography, shot on a Alexa LF and IMAX MSM65, captures the film's dual scale as a claustrophobic submersible dread via fisheye lenses, expansive alpine vistas in 1.43:1 aspect. Lighting plays narrative foil. Rome's golden hour bathes chases in baroque glow, Venice's shadows cloak betrayals. Editor Eddie Hamilton's 2,500 cuts per sequence maintain pulse, cross-cutting pursuits with introspective beats for rhythmic breath. Lorne Belf's score, echoing Lalo Schifrin's motif, layers orchestral swells with electronic dissonantia. The entity's theme a glitchy requiem. Sound design by Al Nelson crafts immersion. Train rails metallic screech, wingsuit winds howl, all mixed for Dolby Atmos envelopment. Production design by Gary Freeman erects tactile worlds of the White Widow's yacht, a floating panopticon. The train's interiors jury-rigged from shipping containers. These elements coalesce into sensory overload, where tech serves story, not spectacle. Critical echoes and fan reverberations. Reception hailed the action zenith at 96% Rotten Tomatoes. Critics score, praising stunts as pure cinema yet nitpick plot convolutions, some dubbing it overstuffed. Box office tallied $567 million worldwide, a solid but budget-strapped haul amid Barbenheimer dominance and strikes. Underperforming Fallout $791 million yet affirming Cruise's draw. Fans on X raved over the Rome chase and train climax, polls crowning the speed flying as franchise pinnacle, though some lamented Ilsa's arc. Legacy, a bridge to Part 2, teasing unresolved threads while standing as stunt opus. Franchise continuum, echoes and evolutions compared to forebears. Dead Reckoning amplifies Fallout's intimacy with global stakes. Its pivot echoing Ghost Protocol's masks but scale to existential. Where Rogue Nation thrilled with opera house hacks, this film's digital hauntings innovate peril. Cruise's Ethan, grayer yet fiercer, evolves the everyman spy into myth. The series' procedural roots yielding to serialized epic, it honors origins of the train nod to 96A while pioneering wingsuit ballets, cementing mission, Impossible as action's gold standard, where each leap forward demands falling first. Mission: Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1, Production, Release and Reception Analysis. Production Development and Pre-Production. The journey toward Mission: Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 began in January 2019 when Tom Cruise announced that the 7th and 8th Mission: Impossible films would be shot back-to-back, with Christopher McQuarrie returning to write and direct both installments. This ambitious plan was initially set to deliver films with July 23, 2021, and August 5, 2022 release dates, demonstrating Paramount Pictures' confidence in the franchise's continued success and McQuarrie's proven ability to deliver spectacular action sequences. The decision to shoot both films simultaneously represented a significant logistical undertaking that would require extensive pre-production planning. McQuarrie, who had successfully helmed Mission: Impossible A follow to critical and commercial success in 2018, was tasked with creating interconnected narratives that would span 2 feature films while maintaining the high-octane action and intricate plotting that had become the franchise's hallmark. However, the back-to-back filming plan was eventually abandoned in February 2021, as the production team recognized the complexities and challenges that emerged during the extended filming process. This decision reflected the realities of managing such an ambitious production schedule, particularly in the context of the unprecedented global circumstances that would soon impact the entertainment industry. The casting process for Dead Reckoning Part 1 involved both returning franchise veterans and exciting new additions. Rebecca Ferguson confirmed her return as Ilsa Faust in February 2019, marking the continuation of her character's complex relationship with Ethan Hunt that had developed across the previous 2 films. Her character's arc would prove to be central to the emotional stakes of the 7th installment. In September 2019, Hayley Atwell joined the cast in what would become the pivotal role of Grace, described by McQuarrie as a destructive force of nature. Atwell herself characterized Grace's loyalties as somewhat ambiguous, hinting at the complex moral landscape that would define the character's journey throughout the film. This casting represented a significant addition to the franchise, bringing Atwell's proven action credentials from her work as Peggy Carter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to the Mission: Impossible world. The addition of Palm Clemente in September 2019 brought another layer of international talent to the production. Clemente, known for her role as Mantis in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, was cast as Paris, a French assassin working for the film's antagonist. Her casting for both the 7th and 8th films indicated the significant role her character would play in the overarching narrative. Simon Pegg's return as Benji Dunn was confirmed in December 2019, ensuring continuity for one of the franchise's most beloved supporting characters. Alongside Pegg, Shea Whigham was cast in both films, adding his considerable dramatic weight to the ensemble. Whigham's casting proved particularly valuable given his ability to portray both authority figures and conflicted characters with equal effectiveness. The casting of Nicholas Hoult in January 2020 initially generated significant excitement, as the young actor was set to play the primary antagonist. Hoult's audition came about after Tom Cruise was impressed by his audition for Top Gun: Maverick, recognizing his talent even though he wasn't right for that particular role. However, scheduling conflicts arising from the COVID-19 pandemic would eventually force Hoult's departure from the project. Henry Czerny's return as Eugene Kittredge marked a significant moment in franchise history, as his character hadn't appeared since the original 1996 Mission: Impossible film. This casting decision demonstrated the filmmaker's commitment to honoring the franchise's legacy while advancing its mythology. Kittredge's evolution from IMF director to CIA director provided rich narrative possibilities for Explo. The most significant casting change occurred in May 2020 when Esai Morales replaced Nicholas Hoult as the primary antagonist Gabriel. This recasting proved to be creatively fortuitous, as McQuarrie had seen Morales' compelling performance as Camino del Rio on the Netflix series Ozark. More importantly, the similarity in age between Cruise and Morales opened up narrative possibilities for connecting Gabriel to Ethan Hunt's pre-IMF past, a creative decision that would become central to the film's emotional resonance. Interestingly, It was only after Holt's departure and Morell's casting that the filmmakers developed the concept of the entity, the artificial intelligence that would serve as the film's central threat. This demonstrates how casting changes can fundamentally alter creative direction, leading to what many would consider one of the franchise's most thematically relevant antagonists. Vanessa Kirby's return as Alana Mitsopoulos, the White Widow, provided continuity from Fallout while expanding her character's role in the criminal underworld. Her character's connection to Max from the original film created intergenerational storytelling that enriched the franchise's mythology. The supporting cast expanded significantly in March 2021 with the addition of Rob Delaney, Charles Parnell, Indira Varma, Mark Gatiss, and Carrie Elves. These actors were cast as heads of various U.S. intelligence agencies, including the National Reconnaissance Office, Joint Special Operations Command, Defense Intelligence Agency, and National Security Agency, respectively. Their inclusion reflected the film's exploration of the modern intelligence landscape and the bureaucratic complexities facing field operatives. Greg Tarzan Davis joined the cast as Degas, partnering with Sheet Wiggums-Briggs and pursuing Ethan Hunt's team. This pairing created a compelling dynamic between veteran and younger operatives within the intelligence community. Angela Bassett was initially set to return as Erica Sloan from Fallout, but COVID-19 travel restrictions ultimately prevented her participation. Her absence was acknowledged in the film through a photograph in director Dennelinger's office, maintaining narrative continuity while adapting to production realities. An intriguing creative decision involved McQuarrie's consideration of making the flashback sequences reflective of their 1989 setting, potentially featuring age Tom Cruise and even Julia Roberts as Gabriel's murdered girlfriend. However, the prohibitive cost of the visual effects and concerns about audience distraction from the de-aging technology led to this concept being abandoned. This decision reflects the production's commitment to practical storytelling over technological spectacle, even as the film would ultimately showcase some of the most ambitious practical stunts in cinema history. The emotional weight of the film was significantly impacted by McQuarrie's decision, made while working on Top Gun: Maverick, to have Ilsa Faust die in the story. This choice reflected his belief that stakes have to be real and his characterization of Ilsa and Ethan's relationship as being doomed to be together and yet doomed never to be together. This narrative decision would prove controversial among fans but demonstrated the filmmaker's willingness to make genuinely consequential story choices. Filming principal photography for Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 officially began under the working title Libre on February 20, 2020, with Venice, Italy serving as the first location. The initial plan called for 3 weeks of filming in Venice before moving to Rome for an extensive 40-day shoot in mid-March. However, the rapid spread of COVID-19 in Italy forced an immediate halt to production, making Dead Reckoning Part 1 one of the first major Hollywood productions to be directly impacted by the pandemic. The production's response to the pandemic would prove to be both innovative and influential within the industry. After the Italian shutdown, the crew quickly pivoted to conducting stunt rehearsals in Surrey, England, before implementing a comprehensive hiatus as the global situation developed. This period of uncertainty lasted until July 2020, when special arrangements were made with the UK government to allow the crew to begin filming at Warner Brothers Studios, Leavesden in Hertfordshire without the standard 14-day quarantine requirement. The decision to make Dead Reckoning Part 1 the first Mission Impossible film shot entirely on digital cameras represented a significant technological shift for the franchise. The production utilized Sony Cine-Alta Venice cameras, marking a departure from the film-based approach that had characterized previous installments. This transition enabled greater flexibility in challenging shooting conditions and post-production workflow, particularly important given the extended and interrupted production schedule. Filming resumed in earnest on September 6, 2020, with McQuarrie documenting the production's progress through carefully curated Instagram posts that offered fans glimpses into the elaborate sets and locations without revealing plot details. This social media strategy helped maintain audience engagement during the extended production period while respecting the secrecy traditionally associated with Mission Impossible productions. Norway became a crucial location for the film's most spectacular sequences, with filming taking place in the municipalities of Stranda and Roma in September 2020. The Norwegian locations provided the dramatic landscapes necessary for the film's train-based action sequences, with Tom Cruise and Esai Morales captured filming intense scenes atop moving trains against the country's stunning natural backdrop. However, the production faced a significant setback in October 2020 when filming in Italy was suspended after 12 crew members tested positive for COVID-19. This incident highlighted the ongoing challenges of maintaining production safety during the pandemic. Filming resumed after a week-long pause, but the incident underscored the constant vigilance required to keep the massive production operational. The most publicized incident of the entire production occurred in December 2020 during filming in London, when an audio recording of Tom Cruise sternly addressing two crew members for not following COVID-19 protocols was released online. Cruise's passionate defense of safety protocols drew comparisons to his character Leigh Grossman from Tropic Thunder, but the response from both the public and industry professionals was largely supportive. Many recognized that Cruise's tone and seriousness were warranted given the extreme circumstances and the burden of ensuring production could continue without further shutdowns. This incident highlighted Cruise's role not just as the film star but as its de facto safety officer, taking personal responsibility for protecting hundreds of crew members and their families. The producer's decision to continue filming under such challenging circumstances demonstrated the significant financial and creative pressures facing major productions during the pandemic. The production's base moved to Longcross Film Studios in Surrey in late December 2020, as the crew needed facilities that could accommodate their strict COVID-19 protocols. The move from Warner Bros. Studios, Leavesden to Longcross demonstrated the flexibility required to maintain production continuity during unprecedented circumstances. February 2021 saw filming conclude in the Middle East before the crew returned to London for finishing touches. The Middle Eastern sequences, filmed at Abu Dhabi International Airport, utilized the terminal still under construction, providing authentic airport environments without disrupting commercial operations. One of the production's most ambitious sequences was filmed in North Yorkshire in April 2021, utilizing the North Yorkshire Moors Railway and the small village of Levisham. This location served as the setting for the film's spectacular train sequence, designed to evoke the Austrian Alps while providing the practical railway infrastructure necessary for the elaborate stunts. The sequence, featuring a train traveling at 60 miles per hour toward a bridge being blown up, was conceived as a tribute to the climactic train wreck seen in Buster Keaton's silent film masterpiece The General, 1926. The train sequence represented months of meticulous planning and preparation. The production team had initially sought to film in Switzerland, but the Swiss government's refusal to authorize explosions for the sequence forced an international location search for an appropriate railway bridge that could be safely destroyed for the film. This search led to extensive negotiations with Polish authorities regarding a historic 151-meter-long, German-era truss bridge on Lake Pilkowiecki in the Jelenia G8-Cube Valley in Lower Silesia. The bridge, opened in 1912 by Wilhelm II and having survived World War II largely intact, had been used by trains until 2016. Initially, Polish State Railways suggested the bridge could be used for the film's explosion sequence, but this proposal generated significant controversy. The controversy surrounding the Polish bridge revealed the complex negotiations involved in securing locations for major action sequences. Local authorities, museum officials, history enthusiasts, scientists, filmmakers, and international heritage organizations protested the planned destruction of the historically significant structure. The International Committee for the Conservation of the Industrial Heritage joined Polish parliament members and the Regional Monuments Heritage Office in opposing the destruction. Christopher McQuarrie ultimately clarified that there had never been a plan to destroy the entire bridge, stating that only unsafe and partially damaged portions would have been affected. which allegedly needed rebuilding anyway. He emphasized that opening the area to tourism required addressing the bridge's deteriorating condition. However, the production company did not pledge to cover construction costs for either renovation of the historic bridge or construction of a replacement. The cultural property registration procedures for the Lake Pilcoaky Bridge were finalized during the controversy, effectively preventing any damage to the structure. This led producer Andrew Exner to sue the Paramount production crew, including Macquarie and Cruz, for breach of contract in May 2021. Ultimately, the train wreck sequence was filmed between April and June 2021 on a constructed set in a disused quarry in the Peak District National Park in Stony Middleton. This location provided the dramatic cliff edge setting necessary for the sequence while avoiding the cultural and legal complications that had emerged in Poland. On August 20, after 2 weeks of suspended filming, the crew successfully filmed the sequence, propelling a mock-up Britannia-class locomotive off the cliff into the quarry. August 2021 saw filming move to Birmingham, where Tom Cruise and Hayley Atwell were spotted filming in the city's Grand Central shopping centre. This urban environment provided a stark contrast to the rural and wilderness locations that had characterized much of the production, demonstrating the film's commitment to diverse and authentic locations. Principal photography officially wrapped in September 2021, as confirmed by the film's gaffer Martin Smith on Instagram. The completion of filming after nearly 2 years of production represented a significant achievement given the unprecedented challenges faced throughout the process. Additional significant locations included various sites throughout Rome, featuring an extended 20-minute car chase sequence that showcased the city's historic streets and architecture. Venice provided elegant party and infiltration sequences that highlighted the city's unique canal-based geography and Renaissance architecture. The Lake District served as the location for the film's parachute and speed flying sequences, utilizing the Buttermere Valley during summer filming in both 2021 and 2022. The fells of High Crag and Robinson provided launching points for the speed flying sequences, with landings taking place near the shore of the nearby lake. These sequences showcased both the natural beauty of the English countryside and Tom Cruise's commitment to performing his own aerial stunts. The Norwegian government's cooperation in authorizing the train-based motorcycle jump and fight scenes demonstrated the international collaboration required to realize the film's ambitious action sequences. These sequences, filmed against Norway's dramatic landscapes, would become some of the film's most memorable and technically impressive moments. Throughout the extended production process, the crew maintained strict COVID-19 protocols that became a model for other major productions. The successful completion of filming under such challenging circumstances demonstrated both the resilience of the filmmaking team and the adaptability of large-scale production management. Post-production. The post-production phase of Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 represented the monumental undertaking that required coordinating the work of multiple visual effects companies while maintaining the practical stunt work that had become the franchise's signature. Industrial Light Magic returned as the primary visual effects vendor, having previously worked on the first Mission Impossible film, 1996, Mission Impossible 3, 2006, and Ghost Protocol, 2011. Their extensive experience with the franchise provided crucial continuity for the complex visual effects work required. The visual effects team expanded significantly for Dead Reckoning Part 1, with Bellow FX, Blind Limited, Clear Angle Studios, and Halon Entertainment serving as additional vendors. This expanded roster reflected both the scale of the visual effects work and the need to distribute the workload across multiple facilities to meet the film's demanding schedule. One of the most technically challenging aspects of post-production involved seamlessly integrating the practical stunts and locations with digital environments and effects. The train sequence alone required extensive digital environment work to transform the North Yorkshire filming location into the Austrian Alps setting depicted in the film. This involved not only landscape replacement but also the creation of digital railway infrastructure and environmental effects. The submarine sequences that opened the film required extensive digital work to create the underwater environments and the futuristic technology depicted aboard the Sevastopol. The entity's digital manifestations and interface designs required innovative approaches to visualizing artificial intelligence in ways that felt both futuristic and grounded in reality. An interesting insight into the post-production process came from one of the film's later test screenings, where director Edgar Wright asked Christopher McQuarrie about a specific audio cue. McQuarrie had considered the cue obvious, but Wright's question made him realize that audiences weren't noticing it. This feedback led McQuarrie and Cruise to make what McQuarrie described as changes to the entire movie, demonstrating the iterative nature of post-production and the value of fresh perspectives from fellow filmmakers. The film's 163-minute runtime represented the longest entry in the Mission Impossible franchise, requiring careful pacing and editing to maintain momentum across its extended duration. The editing process needed to balance spectacular action sequences with character development and plot advancement, ensuring that the film's emotional stakes remained as compelling as its physical stunts. Color grading and digital intermediate work were particularly crucial for a film shot across such diverse locations and lighting conditions. The post-production team needed to create visual coherence across sequences filmed in Italian cities, Norwegian fjords, English countryside, and Middle Eastern airports, often under varying weather conditions and at different times of year. Sound design and mixing represented another crucial aspect of post-production, with the team needing to create immersive soundscapes for everything from submarine interiors to high-speed train sequences. The film's action sequences required particularly sophisticated sound work to enhance the practical stunts and maintain audience engagement. Music. Lorne Balfe's return as composer for Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 provided musical continuity from Fallout while expanding the franchise's sonic palette to accommodate the film's themes of artificial intelligence and technological control. Balfe's confirmation for both the 7th and 8th films came in early May 2020, ensuring consistent musical development across the two-part story. The composer faced the challenge of honoring the iconic Mission Impossible theme while creating new musical themes that reflected the film's contemporary concerns about artificial intelligence and digital surveillance. The entity's presence in the film required musical representation that suggested both technological sophistication and existential threat. Balfe's approach involved traditional orchestral elements combined with electronic and synthesized components that reflected the film's technological themes. The score needed to support both intimate character moments and large-scale action sequences, requiring considerable dynamic range and thematic flexibility. The score's early release strategy began with the digital release of Balfe's music from the teaser trailer on June 23, 2022. Through Paramount Music. This single release helped build anticipation for the film while showcasing the composer's updated approach to the franchise's musical identity. The full score needed to accommodate the film's extended runtime while maintaining musical interest and supporting the narrative's emotional progression. Balfe's work on the train sequence alone required music that could sustain tension and excitement across an extended action set piece while building to the sequence's climactic moments. The composer's integration of Ethan Hunt's personal theme with the broader Mission Impossible musical vocabulary reflected the character's evolution across 7 films while suggesting the personal stakes that would define Dead Reckoning Part 1. The score also needed to support the complex relationships between characters, particularly the tragic arc of Ilsa Faust and her connection to Ethan. Released theatrical. The theatrical release of Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 represented both the culmination of an extended production process and a test of audience appetite for large-scale action spectacle in a post-pandemic theatrical landscape. The film's release strategy evolved significantly from its original conception, reflecting both the impact of COVID-19 on the entertainment industry and the competitive challenges facing major studio releases. The film's world premiere took place at the Auditorium Conciliation in Rome on June 19, 2023, providing a glamorous introduction that honored both the film's Italian locations and the franchise's international appeal. This premiere served as both a celebration of the production's completion and a launchpad for the global promotional campaign. The United States theatrical release on July 12, 2023, came after multiple delays and scheduling changes that reflected the pandemic's ongoing impact on film distribution. The film was originally scheduled for release on July 23, 2021, then moved to November 19, 2021, then May 27, 2022, and finally September 30, 2022. Before settling on the July 2023 date. Each delay represented not only production challenges but also strategic considerations about optimal release timing and competitive positioning. Paramount's decision to move the release date forward by 2 days to July 12, announced at CinemaCon in April 2023, demonstrated confidence in the film's commercial prospects and a desire to maximize its theatrical window before the summer's other major releases. Special early access fan event screenings on July 10 provided additional revenue opportunities while building word-of-mouth momentum. The film's premium format release strategy was comprehensive, with availability in IMAX, Dolby Cinema, 4DX, ScreenX, RPX, and other enhanced theatrical experiences. This approach reflected both the technical sophistication of the film's production and the importance of premium ticket sales for major studio profitability. The variety of formats available ensured that audiences could experience the film's spectacular practical stunts and visual effects in optimal conditions. The film's 163-minute runtime presented both opportunities and challenges for theatrical exhibition. While the extended length allowed for more comprehensive storytelling and spectacular action sequences, it also reduced the number of daily showings theaters could schedule, potentially impacting overall box office performance. International release strategies varied by territory, with the film premiering in Sydney on July 3, 2023, and releasing in Australia on July 8, 5 days before the US release. This staggered approach helped build international momentum while accommodating different theatrical markets and competitive landscapes. The promotional campaign for Dead Reckoning Part 1 began with a trailer debut at CinemaCon on April 28, 2022. Featuring an introduction by Tom Cruise filmed while flying in a biplane. This promotional approach perfectly captured Cruise's commitment to practical stunts while generating significant industry buzz. The trailer was subsequently leaked to social media on May 21, 2022, before receiving official online release on May 23, 2022. The CinemaCon introduction was officially released on September 8, 2022. Providing additional promotional content that emphasized Cruise's personal investment in the franchise and his commitment to theatrical experience. This direct-to-exhibitor communication reflected the industry's recognition of theatrical exhibition's importance for major action spectacles. Critical response to the initial trailer was overwhelmingly positive, with Sam Barsanti of the AV Club highlighting the impressive action sequences and JoeBlow.com praising both the truly amazing action and Cruise's dedication to entertainment. These early reactions helped establish expectations for the film's practical stunt work and spectacular set pieces. A behind-the-scenes preview debuted ahead of IMAX screenings of Avatar: The Way of Water in December 2022. Before receiving wider online release on December 19, 2022. This strategic placement alongside James Cameron's highly anticipated sequel demonstrated Paramount's confidence in Dead Reckoning Part 1's appeal to audiences seeking spectacular visual experiences. International promotional strategies included innovative collaborations, such as the partnership with the anime and manga series Spy Tilde Family in Japan. This collaboration produced a parody poster featuring anime characters replacing the movie cast and included a collab highlights video narrated by the voice actors from the anime series. This cross-media promotion demonstrated the film's global appeal and the creative approaches possible in international marketing. The film's theatrical presentation emphasized both the spectacular practical stunts that had become the franchise's franchise's signature and the contemporary relevance of its artificial intelligence themes. Marketing materials consistently highlighted Tom Cruise's personal commitment to performing dangerous stunts while emphasizing the film's exploration of technology's potential threats to human autonomy. Home media. The home media release strategy for Mission: Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 reflected both the film's technical sophistication and the evolving landscape of home entertainment consumption. The film became available for digital download on October 10, 2023, just 3 months after its theatrical release, providing audiences with premium home viewing options while the film remained culturally relevant. The physical media release on October 31, 2023, included Ultra HD Blu-ray, Standard Blu-ray, and DVD versions, ensuring compatibility across different home entertainment systems and price points. This multi-format approach recognized the diverse preferences and technical capabilities of the home viewing audience while maximizing revenue opportunities across different market segments. The Ultra HD Blu-ray and Blu-ray releases featured extensive supplementary content that provided unprecedented insight into the film's production process. Behind-the-scenes featurettes documented the elaborate practical stunts and international locations, while editing featurettes revealed the post-production challenges involved in creating the film's seamless action sequences. A deleted scenes montage offered glimpses of additional character and plot development that hadn't made it into the final cut, providing fans with expanded context for the film's narrative choices. The inclusion of an audio commentary track allowed director Christopher McQuarrie and potentially other key collaborators to provide detailed insights into creative decisions, production challenges, and the overall vision for the Mission: Impossible franchise. The comprehensive supplementary content reflected the film's status as a major studio tentpole release and recognized the collector market's appetite for extensive behind-the-scenes material. These features served both as added value for consumers and as historical documentation of one of the most challenging productions in recent Hollywood history. The film's arrival on Paramount Plus streaming service on January 25, 2024. Marked its transition to subscription-based viewing and reflected the integrated distribution strategies increasingly common for major studio releases. Interestingly, the streaming version was titled simply Mission: Impossible: A Dead Reckoning, dropping the Part 1 designation since the sequel had abandoned its original Part 2 subtitle in favor of the Final Reckoning. This title change for the streaming release demonstrated the fluid nature of franchise naming and marketing strategies, particularly when plans for connected films evolved during production and post-production processes. The decision to remove Part 1 from the streaming title suggested an effort to position the film as a standalone experience rather than the first half of a two-part story. Reception. Box office. The box office performance of Mission: Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 presented a complex picture of both commercial achievement and financial disappointment that reflected the challenging theatrical landscape of 2023 and the evolving economics of major studio tentpole releases. With an estimated production budget of $291 million, making it one of the most expensive films ever made, Dead Reckoning Part 1 faced extraordinary financial pressure to achieve massive global returns. The film's worldwide gross of $571.1 million represented a significant commercial achievement under normal circumstances, making it the 10th highest-grossing film of 2023. However, when measured against its enormous production costs and the additional marketing and distribution expenses typical of major studio releases, the film was widely characterized as a box office disappointment that would likely fail to generate theatrical profits for Paramount Pictures. Variety reported that given the film's massive budget, it would likely not turn a profit during its theatrical run, later estimating that the studio would lose approximately $100 million if the film failed to cross $600 million worldwide. This analysis highlighted the increasingly challenging economics facing major studio productions, where enormous budgets require corresponding massive returns to achieve profitability. The domestic box office performance proved particularly challenging, with Dead Reckoning Part 1 earning $172.6 million in the United States and Canada. Initial projections had suggested the film would gross around $90 million from 4,327 theaters over its first 5 days, with an additional $160 million from international territories for a combined 5-day worldwide debut of approximately $250 million. However, the film's actual opening performance fell short of these projections. After earning $15.5 million on its first day, including $7 million from Tuesday night preview screenings, and $8.3 million on its second day, weekend estimates were reduced to $54 million for the 3-day weekend and $78 million for the 5-day period. The film ultimately opened to $54.7 million for its opening weekend and $78.5 million over 5 days, just behind Mission: Impossible 2's $78.8 million opening in 2000. The film's second weekend performance proved even more challenging, dropping 65% to $19.4 million and finishing fourth behind newcomers Barbie and Oppenheimer, as well as the holdover Sound of Freedom. This represented the biggest second weekend decline of any Mission: Impossible film, breaking the previous record held by Mission: Impossible 2. Industry analysts attributed the film's unexpected box office decline to several factors, including the loss of IMAX screens to Oppenheimer and the cultural phenomenon surrounding the Barbenheimer double-feature experience. The simultaneous release of Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer and Greta Gerwig's Barbie created an unprecedented cultural moment that dominated social media and audience attention, inadvertently overshadowing out payments related to production delays and additional costs incurred during filming, provided some financial relief for the studio's massive investment in the production. The box office performance of Dead Reckoning Part 1 ultimately demonstrated both the continued appeal of the Mission: Impossible franchise and the increasingly challenging economics facing major studio tentpole releases. While the film achieved solid global revenues and critical acclaim, its enormous production costs reflected industry trends toward ever larger budgets that require corresponding massive returns to achieve profitability. Critical response: the critical reception of Mission: Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 was overwhelmingly positive, with reviewers praising both the film's spectacular practical action sequences and its surprisingly thoughtful exploration of artificial intelligence themes. This critical acclaim provided a stark contrast to the film's commercial challenges and demonstrated the continued artistic vitality of the Mission: Impossible franchise under Christopher McQuarrie's direction. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film achieved an impressive 96% positive rating from 433 critics' reviews, with an average rating of 0.8. The website's consensus read, with world-threatening stakes and epic set pieces to match that massive title, Mission: Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1 proves this is still a franchise you should choose to accept. This near-universal critical approval placed the film among the most critically acclaimed entries in the franchise and demonstrated reviewers' appreciation for both its technical achievement and narrative sophistication. Metacritic assigned the film a score of 81 out of 100 based on 66 critics, indicating universal acclaim. This weighted average score reflected consistent praise from critics across different publications and geographic markets, suggesting broad critical consensus about the film's quality and achievement. Audience reception proved equally positive, with CinemaScore reporting an average grade of A from theatrically surveyed audiences on an A+ to F scale. Post-Track reported that 90% of filmgoers gave the film a positive score, indicating strong audience satisfaction despite the film's extended runtime and complex plotting. Mark Kermode of The Guardian exemplified the positive critical response, awarding the film 4 out of 5 stars while applauding Tom Cruise's performance and praising the film's join-the-dots plot and thrilling action. Kermode's review highlighted both the entertainment value and technical sophistication that characterized much of the critical discussion surrounding the film. Todd McCarthy of Deadline Hollywood found that the film represented Hollywood action filmmaking at its peak, while Siddhant Lakha of IGN argued that if every tentpole franchise entry were this fun and finely tuned, the theatrical versus streaming debate would be immediately put to rest. These reviews emphasized not only the film's individual merits but its broader significance for the future of theatrical spectacle and big-budget entertainment. Brian Truitt of USA Today praised the action sequences while acknowledging the film's thematic complexity, writing that it's the first half of a man versus machine epic that doesn't skimp in the thrills department. Just don't think too hard about it, though you'll probably still give serious side-eye to your laptop. This review captured both the film's entertainment value and its contemporary relevance regarding artificial intelligence and digital surveillance concerns. However, not all critical response was entirely positive. Adam Woodward of Little White Lies offered a more mixed assessment, remarking on the film's diminishing returns amid all the ambitious action. This minority-critical perspective suggested that even within the broadly positive reception, some reviewers questioned whether the franchise's emphasis on increasingly elaborate practical stunts was reaching a point of diminishing returns. Variety's coverage presented an interesting internal contrast, with Peter Debreuge offering a very positive review while Owen Gleiberman wrote a separate column suggesting that Cruise and McQuarrie should go back to what audiences originally loved about the franchise if they wanted to end it on a high note. This internal disagreement at a single publication reflected broader industry discussions about franchise evolution and audience expectations. Critics consistently praised Tom Cruise's continued commitment to performing his own stunts, with many reviews emphasizing the authenticity and excitement that practical stunt work brings to modern action cinema. It's no secret that Tom Cruise cares more about the survival of the movie business, or at least the movie business as he's known it, and helped to shape in his own image than anyone else has ever cared about anything else. Sure, we're talking about a guy who seems to care about everything more than anyone else cares about anything. But the fight against the future has grown increasingly personal for modern Hollywood's signature megastar, whose first Mission Impossible movie helped transmute him into a living emblem of the movies themselves. What others might see as a content-driven culture war, Cruise naturally regards as an existential threat, and the last few years have seen the actor-producer channel his singularly clenched intensity into a holy crusade against the standard-lowering forces of digital technology. The eighth dynamic saves its toughest battles for its strongest warriors. Motion smoothing might just be a setting that you need to change on your parents' TV, but Cruise sees it as a vast conspiracy to make people more apathetic towards the viewing experience. Venture capital might have sold the masses on the idea that movie theaters are a relic of the analog era, but Cruise sees them as irreplaceable churches where alienated strangers can be united in the light of the collective imagination, and codify his ever-inflating savior complex. AI might promise to make your life easier, but Cruise sees it as a willful surrender of human agency, an affront to objective reality, and perhaps most of all, a massive fuck you to a multiplex icon who frequently risks his life to restore the relationships between seeing and believing. Anyone who saw Top Gun: Maverick knows that Cruise isn't shy about confronting these concerns on screen, and since everyone saw, and believed, that Best Picture-nominated mega-hit despite the supposed death of cinema, it stands to reason that Cruise's next blockbuster, the goofy, romantic, and often transcendently committed Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1, should escalate his beef with the machines to hilariously little new heights. Indeed, the last four missions have brought consistency to this once chameleonic franchise by focusing on Ethan Hunt's all-too-human vulnerabilities, namely, the super spy's attachment to his estranged wife, Michelle Monaghan, whose storyline was resolved in 2018's Majestic Fallout, and how such intimate relationships tend to get in the way of saving the world. It's hard for anyone to prioritize the greater good when their own happiness is hanging in the balance, but Hunt's ultimate strength has always been his ability to make the impossible choice. That Hunt is a real person under his various masks is what makes him so dangerous, and that he's played by the most alien and unrelatable of movie stars is what makes him so compelling. Over time, the Mission Impossible series has forged a cohesive identity through its obsession with balancing the human element against bottom-line calculations, and that's why it's become such a natural place for Cruise to motorcycle into traffic around the Arc de Triomphe, fly a motorcycle off the top of a mountain in Norway, or otherwise showcase that he's the only A-lister mad enough to save the movies from themselves. These death-defying spectacles risk becoming snuff films in the service of self-preservation, absent the unbridled nostalgia of Maverick. The forward-thinking new installment feels like nothing less than a $300 million backdrop for Cruise to argue that blockbusters can't afford to lose their last shred of believability. Mission Impossible has always taken place in a shadow world where you can't believe your own two eyes, and so it feels natural for Dead Reckoning Part 1 to take such direct aim at the clear and present dangers posed by our digital future. By reaffirming how satisfying practical action set pieces can be, Cruise and returning director Christopher McQuarrie set the stage for a story about why technology shouldn't be fully entrusted with the things that require a human touch. Ridiculous from the start but also strangely fresh for yet another 21st century tentpole about a rogue AI, Dead Reckoning Part 1 may not be the best movie in the Mission Impossible franchise. There's no topping the raw adrenaline rush that followed. And McQuarrie is smart enough not to try, but this extravagantly entertaining Dolby soap opera nails what the Mission Impossible franchise does best, weaponizing artifice and illusion in order to fight for a world that's still worth believing in. That being said, that decision to make the bad guy a string of code or whatever with heavy emphasis on the whatever can't help but feel a bit like throwing in the towel. Least of all in a series that's suffered from a serious villain problem from the very beginning, Philip Seymour Hoffman being the sole and undeniable exception. Which isn't to say that Ethan Hunt and his pals at the Impossible Mission Force are tasked with defeating a bad piece of malware or another run-of-the-mill Skynet trip-off. Far from it. The entity, as it's referred to approximately every 5 seconds over the course of this luxurious 163-minute film, is a piece of AI so elegant that it decides to throw an eyes-wide-shut like costume ball for itself in a Venetian palace, classic entity behavior, and so elaborate that its master plan will take an entire second film to fully unpack. At one point someone tells Hunt that he's playing four-dimensional chess with an algorithm, but it's a match that McQuarrie and Eric Jendrison's script largely streamlines into the series' usual game of high-wire MacGuffin chasing, with the entity convinced that it has enough data to predict Hunt's every move. Essentially, the streaming algorithm identifies Tom Cruise as the only person who can stop it, and therefore it does everything in its power to kill him. Art imitating life, imitating art. Little does the entity know that it's dealing with the living manifestation of Destiny himself, now rebranded as a mind-reading, shape-shifting incarnation of chaos. If the deeply satisfying Dead Reckoning Part 1 only feels unfinished or half-told because of the human stooge the entity hires to do its spitting, a zero-impression terrorist named Gabriel Morales, who was supposedly instrumental in Hunt's decision to join the IMF all those years ago. We learn next to nothing about their overlapping pasts over the course of this movie, which feels like an egregious oversight because Gabriel has so little to offer beyond generic intrigue, sinister handsomeness, and an unstoppable crony of his own, a homicidal Palm Clemente Eve, electrifying despite the tropiness of the whole silent Asian henchwoman archetype. What the mysterious figure from Hunt's past approach really offers this movie is a different and more classically melodramatic tone than we got from the franchise's last few installments, as Dead Reckoning pivots away from the orgiastic action that shaped followed, and towards something that more closely resembles a high-octane Death in Venice or a John Frankenheimer remake of Roman Holiday than it does the likes of Fury Road. There are still plenty of bullets fired, but there's also a moonlit sword fight between Gabriel and Rebecca Ferguson's ice cold, and oh so cool, Ilsa Faust atop the Pont Minich, a luminous bridge in this austere castello. Cruise still gets to sprint around with stop-motion stiffness. That he thinks he's 40 is a lot more noticeable than the fact that he's actually 6'1", but this Hunt always seems to be running away from something even when he's hurtling towards something else. In stark contrast to several of the previous missions, Hunt and his team, headlined as usual by Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames' nippy hackers, are presented as more prey than predator. Likewise, this movie's rather small array of action set pieces, all of them fresh, tactile, and utterly spectacular in a way that continues to put the rest of Hollywood to shame. They are less dependent on what the spies are trying to accomplish than what they're hoping to avoid or escape. Case in point, the frantic and extremely funny mid-film chase through the streets of central Rome, during which Hunt is handcuffed to the sexy pickpocket, franchise newcomer Haley Atwell, who might be able to lead him to the MacGuffin. A jaw-dropping how the fuck did they do that? Megaflex. In an age when movies are seldom magical enough to beg that question, the citywide jailbreak combines artfully destructive slapstick with the loudest car crashes you've ever heard to create the kind of cinematic euphoria that still can't be faked or forged at home. VR headsets might allow rich people to enjoy IMAX-sized screens on their living room couches, but Dead Reckoning is a bone-shaking reminder that sound is the real secret weapon of the theatrical experience. Not since La Dolce Vita has a film more effectively transformed ancient Rome into a modern playground, a fitting touch for a blockbuster so desperate to squeeze a few new dollops of joy from the ruins that surround it. Oh, one more insane flex while we're on the subject, shooting an elaborate first-act heist sequence, complete with hundreds of extras and a nuclear bomb, in the world's biggest airport terminal just before it opened to the public. The wow factor might not rate alongside the Rome chase to come, but hyper-convincing production design and a frightening degree of directorial confidence make for a powerful combination, and McQuarrie has so much fun with the space that you're basically all in for whatever the movie does next by the time Dead Reckoning takes off from Abu Dhabi. This being a Mission Impossible movie, it goes without saying that Hunt is also trying to avoid the government that supposedly cuts his checks, and Dead Reckoning finds the super spy growing more rogue than he's ever gone rogue before. The IMF has long acted like Dennis the Menace to the CIA's Mr. Wilson, but in another overt nod to the past, this one a lot more rewarding than what Gabriel brings to the picture, and the tension between the two is ramped up even further by the reappearance of Hunt's second least favorite colleague from the first Mission Impossible almost 30 years ago, the fantastically punchable Eugene Kittredge, Henry Czerny, reprising the role as only he could. And Kittredge of course has a goon squad of his own, with Sheet Wiggum and Greg Tarzan Davis playing a pair of enforcers who add the pinch of "Are we the baddies?" flavor to the periphery of every major action sequence. You see, Hunt doesn't trust any country on Earth with control of the entity, including his own. Power is never safe in the hands of anyone who cares about algorithmic data more than people. Nevertheless, Dead Reckoning is only able to cast our digital future as an enemy unto itself because its heroes wield some pretty spiffy technology of their own, and it would be wrong to suggest the Mission Impossible movies outright reject the tools of modern Hollywood. Tom Cruise might be the world's least insurable film star, but he's not Tomish. The marketing campaign for the sequel kicked off with a behind-the-scenes look at the biggest stunt in cinema history, in which Cruise drives a Honda CRF 250 off the peak of a Norwegian mountain and then plunges 4,000 feet into a ravine before opening his parachute. And even that head-shaking tribute to practical magic made it clear that the full effect tastes still a heart-in-your-throat experience after eons of hype was only possible with the help of some computer enhancement. The trick remains using such tools responsibly, striking the right balance between humanity and artificiality. It's a line that Cruise has needed to walk since the early days of his stardom, only for that walk to become a high-wire act after the couch-jumping Scientology of it all made it that much harder for audiences to see themselves in his screen persona. What allows Dead Reckoning Part 1 to become more than the sum of its semi-modular parts is McQuarrie's gift for expressing character through action, especially during a climactic set-piece that challenges Hunt to forfeit what little is left of his soul. A glorified trolley problem set aboard the Orient Express. The situation itself is pretty standard for the Mission series, but the terms here are a bit starker and more nuanced than ever before. Likewise, the action might seem small-scale when compared to the CGI bonanzas that today's audiences have been conditioned to expect from the third act of a studio blockbuster, but it's conducted with such convincing force that it feels bigger and more involving than anything the Avengers have ever had to face. It also feels like a nod back to action cinema's silent roots, when all you needed to make a great movie was a guy, some guns, and a really big train. Besides, Expectations can be misleading. The entity might be able to throw itself a banging shindig, but even the most advanced predictive learning algorithms on the planet can't fully account for the human element. The future isn't written yet. Nothing is certain. The movies and/or the world might be trending in one direction, but it's never too late to adjust course. Our lives are the sum of our choices, someone gravely intones at one point. And Tom Cruise is willing to risk his life to remind us that we can still choose what we want tomorrow to look like. Then again, saving the world isn't much of a choice when you're the only one who can do it, and Dead Reckoning Part 1 makes pretty damn clear that Ethan Hunt has no equal. That bodes well for Dead Reckoning Part 2, much less so for everything that follows. When 2018's Mission Impossible A Fallout was released, it felt like the perfect way to conclude the current Me franchise. Never before had a movie so expertly connected multiple threads of the movies before it and tied up plot lines that we thought had been abandoned. When Dead Reckoning was announced, and repeatedly shut down due to COVID, I increasingly thought this would just be a misguided cash grab after what I thought was a perfect conclusion. I could have not been more wrong. Dead Reckoning Part 1 dives even deeper into the Me lore, bringing back Me director Kittredge, Henry Czerny, whom we last saw in the first installment. There's a new threat to the entire world, and once again Ilsa Faust, Rebecca Ferguson, has found herself in the midst of it. Kittredge offers Ethan, Tom Cruise, a mission, should he choose to accept it. Intercept Elsa and retrieve one half of a key, which no one knows what unlocks before the assassins hot on her trail take her out. This is the first time the script reveals the four-dimensional chess it is playing. Ethan would never accept a mission to intercept Elsa unless her life was in danger. Elsa is so incredibly calm that only Ethan has a chance to get close to her, but even then, only due to their personal connection. The only way to motivate Ethan to engage her is to put her life in imminent danger. This may seem like a large plot point, but it literally happens in the first 15 minutes of the nearly 3-hour film and is only a hint of what's to come. Dead Reckoning makes the bold, an almost frighteningly premonitious choice to make its main antagonist a rogue guy. This is a choice that could easily get hokey real quick and almost pushes the spy tech genre of the Mission Impossible series into pure science fiction if it wasn't for some of the recent news articles. Civilians now have access to software and apps that can mimic the look and voice of other people. Just imagine what is available to the military and security agencies of the world. Even more jarring is a recent viral news article that is now being retracted by the U.S. Air Forces, where war game simulations with an AI drone turned against its commanders because they were preventing it from accomplishing the prime directive of killing the enemy. Keep in mind, this script was written roughly 5 years ago, pre-COVID. Even more engaging, frightening, is how great this script is. There are a myriad of examples, but most are spoilers. However, there is one sequence that sticks in my mind. All of the main antagonists have a meeting. No weapons are allowed. One character brings 2 switchblades. They are prominently displayed a la Chekhov's gun. After the next 20 minutes play out, it becomes very clear that the choice for those weapons to be introduced was predicted by the entity, and none of what happened afterward would have been possible without this algorithmic choice. There were multiple times during the movie I began to wonder if they used AI to assist in writing the script. This isn't a dig at the writers, because I don't believe they did, but more of a compliment considering the layers of possibilities they must have sifted through to create, relatively, believable scenarios that even had our incredibly competent heroes triple-guessing themselves. Further elevating this incredible action flick is the ever-growing cast. The bigger it gets, the less screen time everyone has, but do they deliver? The human minion to the evil eye entity is Gabriel, Asa Morales, a calm, collected sociopath with ties to Ethan's past. Another absolutely delightful addition is the assassin Paris, Palm Clemente Eve. Many will know her as Mantis from the Guardians of the Galaxy films. She's nowhere near as empathetic in this role, but she certainly chews every scene she's in. Be sure to check out the music video she made with Simon Pegg below the film trailer on this page. Last but not least, is career thief Grace, Haley Atwell, another Marvel alumni. Who didn't love her as Agent Carter? She's always been great, but her work in this film is surprisingly good. Watching it I realized there is a rare quality my favorite heroes have, which is being equally competent and also legitimately shocked at the scenarios they find themselves in. I can currently only think of 3 actors who can pull off this look: Harrison Ford as Indy, Tom Cruise as Ethan, and Haley Atwell as Grace. The only minor complaint I have with the movie is the biggest stunt of the movie has had multiple BTS mini-docs released on it over the past year. It's an exceptional stunt, but knowing so much about what it was, and how it was done before the movie was released, really diminishes the movie magic when seeing it for the first time. You already know what's coming a mile away, you know what's real, and what's fake in the shot. It's still impressive, but already knowing the BTS completely takes you out of the moment. Hopefully, they don't make this same mistake with Part 2. The series finale. I don't know if anyone has ever clocked whether Tom Cruise is faster than a speeding bullet. The guy has legs, and guts. His sprints into the near void have defined and sustained his stardom, becoming his singular superpower. He racks up more miles in Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1. The 7th entry in a 27-year-old franchise that repeatedly affirms a movie truism. That is, there are few sights more cinematic than a human being outracing danger and even death on screen. It's the ultimate wish fulfillment. Much remains the same in this latest adventure, including the series' reliable entertainment quotient and Cruise's stamina. Once again, he plays Ethan Hunt, the leader of a hush-hush American spy agency, the Impossible Mission Force, alongside a rotating roster of beautiful kick-ass women, most recently Rebecca Ferguson and Vanessa Kirby, and loyal handyman, Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames. Ethan has been sprinting, flying, diving and speed racing across the globe while battling enemy agents, rogue operatives, garden variety terrorists and armies of minions. Along the way, he has regularly delivered a number of stomach-churning wows, like jumping out a window and climbing the world's tallest building. This time, the villain is the very current artificial intelligence, here called the Entity. The whole thing is complicated, as these stories tend to be, with stakes as catastrophic as recent news headlines have trumpeted, or, as an open letter signed by 350 AI authorities put it last month, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal-scale risks, such as pandemics and nuclear war. In the face of such calamity, who you gonna call? Analog Man, that's who, aka Mr. Hunt, who receives his usual mysterious directives that, this time, have been recorded on a cassette tape. An amusing touch for a movie about the threat posed to the material world by a godlike digital power. That's all fine and good, even if the most memorable villain proves to be a Harley Quinn-esque agent of chaos. Paris, Palm Clemente, who races after Ethan in a Hummer and seems ready to spin off into her own franchise. She tries flattening him during a seamlessly choreographed chase sequence in Rome. The stunt coordinator, Wade Eastwood, is also a race car driver that mixes excellent wheel skills with scares, laughs, thoughtful geometry and precision timing. At one point, Ethan ends up behind the wheel while handcuffed to a new love interest, Grace, Haley Atwell, another welcome addition, driving and drifting, flirting and burning rubber in what is effectively the action movie equivalent of a sex scene. Despite the new faces, there are, unsurprisingly, no real surprises in Dead Reckoning Part 1, which features a number of dependably show-stopping stunts, hits every narrative beat hard and, shrewdly, has just enough winking humor to keep the whole thing from sagging into self-seriousness. This is the third movie in the series that Cruise and the director Christopher McQuarrie have made together, and they have settled into a mutually beneficial groove. On his end, McQuarrie has assembled a fully loaded blockbuster machine that briskly recaps the series' foundational parameters, adds the requisite twists and, most importantly, showcases his star. For his part, Cruise has once again cranked the superspeed dial up to 11. Over the years, McQuarrie has loosened up the star, who generally seems to be having a pretty good time. Still, it must be exhausting to be Tom Cruise, who famously performs his own stunts. A smattering of creases now radiate around his smile, but time doesn't seem to have slowed his relentless roll. The most arresting set piece here finds Ethan smoothly sailing off a cliff via a motorbike and a parachute. Improbable, yes? Impossible? Nah. Like the other large-scaled, stunt-driven sequences. This showy leap at once underscores Cruise's skills and reminds you that a real person in a real location on a real motorbike did this lunatic stunt. Nothing if not the classicist. Ethan also goes one-to-one with a baddie, Asa Morales, atop a speeding train, perhaps in homage to his cliffhanger moves on another train in the first Mission Impossible, 1996. In his review, the New York Times critic Stephen Holden observed that with this film Cruise had found the perfect superhero character. It's worth noting that, in 1996, the top 10 movies released in the United States were largely high-concept thrillers and comedies. In 2022, half the top 10 releases were from Marvel or DC. Yet the film that connected most strongly with audiences was Cruise's Top Gun: Maverick. Although Maverick featured plenty of digital whiz-bangery, its most spectacular draw of course was Cruise, who has also remained the single greatest attraction in the Mission movies. To that point, while there's little of substance that I remember about the first film other than it was directed by Brian De Palma, I can vividly picture with the crystalline recall that only some movies instill two distinct images of Cruise. Ethan from it. In one, he races away from a tsunami of water and shattered glass. In the second, he hovers inches above a gleaming white floor, his black-clad body stretched head to toe in a near-perfect horizontal line. The filmmakers imprinted those images on my memory. So did Cruise. Early in the Mission Impossible series, the outlandishness of the movie's plots and Cruise's equally fantastical stunts started to make him seem less than human. By the second movie, I wondered if he were disappearing altogether, turning himself into little more than a special effect. Since then, the plots and the stunts have remained impossibly absurd, sometimes enjoyably so, as here. Yet over the years, the series has unexpectedly made Cruise seem more poignantly human than he has sometimes seemed elsewhere. One reason is that the Mission movies were instrumental in shifting the locus of his star persona from his easygoing smile and the toothy gleam of risky business and Jerry Maguire to his hard-working body. The obvious effort that Cruise puts into his mission stunts and the physical punishment he endures to execute them is signaled by his grimaces and popping muscles. They have had a salutary impact on that persona, as has the naked ferocity with which he's held on to stardom. It's touching. It's also difficult to imagine any actor today starting out in a superhero flick reaching a commensurate fame, not only because the movies, Hollywood's at least, no longer retain the hold on the popular imagination that they once did, but also because the corporately branded superhero suit will always be more important than whoever wears it. Tom Cruise doesn't need a suit. He was, after all, built for speed. He just needs to keep running. Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1, rated PG-13 for thriller violence. Running time, 2 hours 43 minutes. In theaters. With this week's release of an entry in a blockbuster action franchise, the old adage of 7 being a lucky number will truly be put to the test. Now it's not the highest number franchise as we've gotten Fast X or the longest running like the big flick from almost 2 weeks ago, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, way back in 1981. Of course, we can add on the inspiration for this series, actually a TV series, overseen by Lucia Broken-Barilli, which exploded onto the airwaves way back in the prehistoric era, merely 1966. Oh, but this tentpole has catapulted well past its network roots. Still, it's tough not to hear that infectious theme music from Lalo Schifrin when taking in this rather long title, but thanks, Paramount, for being upfront about it. Mission Impossible: A Dead Reckoning Part 1. And now I'm seeing that sizzling fuse in my head. Surprisingly, this new installment doesn't begin with the finale of another caper involving the IMF Impossible Missions Force. Nope, we're on board for the last cruise, a natch of an invisible Russian submarine. Advanced top-secret stealth capabilities, really, completely undetectable, but not indestructible, as 2 prized interlocking keys are left floating in its wreckage. This leads to a new mission, which he chooses to accept, for IMF ace Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, who is sent to the Namib Desert for a deadly reunion with old cohort Elsa Faust, Rebecca Ferguson. Soon he's back in the States as a hush-hush meeting of the community outlines the urgent need for said keys. It's the only way to stop a now rogue AI program called the Entity, which has become sentient and desires to use the World Wide Web to take over the planet. Hunt's boss Kitteridge, Henry Cherney, is present, along with his superior, DNI head Denelinger, Carrie Elms. Learning of Hunt's involvement, he sends out a team led by Briggs, Sheet Wiggum, and Degas, Greg Tarzan Davis, to stop the IMF, reuniting with his teammates and pals, Luther, Ving Rhames, and Benji, Simon Pegg. Hunt travels to the Abu Dhabi airport to intercept a key transfer. Said item is snatched away by pro pickpocket/drop pocket Grace, Haley Atwell. But Hunt also has to deal with the return of an old enemy, the ruthless and deadly Gabriel, Aside Morales, who's helping the Entity. This leads to a globetrotting race for the keys, with stops in Rome and Venice, battles with Gabriel's aide, the deadly Paris, Palm Clemente Eve, and a tense showdown by another woman from Hunt's past, Alana aka the White Widow, Vanessa Kirby. Eventually, everything and everyone converge on a heart-stopping ride aboard the Orient Express, with no Belgian master detective to help. Perhaps this is a mission that's truly impossible. This thriller boasts an impressive acting ensemble, but once again this is Mr. Cruise's show. In the previous sextet, he's more than proved his skills in selling spectacular action stunts. However, Ethan is not merely a daredevil. We see some of his warmth and commitment to his team, while forging a couple of possible romances. Plus he injects humor into these dire predicaments as he quickly switches gears when plans go awry, and even shows a sign of panic as he works up the nerve to plunge forward. And then Cruise shows us that the Super Spy is a man of principles when he decides to block the higher-ups who lust after the Entity. As mentioned earlier, his sometimes squabbling duo has his back. Rhames as Luther is often the wise and grounded elder mentor, sort of the cool uncle, while Peg as Benji is the often overexcited and exasperated kid brother who only gets in the field when absolutely needed. Ferguson is quite dynamic and decisive as the skilled Faust, while Kirby is slinky and sexy as the unpredictable wildcard Alana. Probably the best of the newbies is Atwell, upending her MCU Peggy Carter persona, as the in it for the bucks Grace, who slowly starts to regain her ethics due to the influence of the IMF and especially Hunt. And yes, there's a playful chemistry between them. As for the opponents, Wyam and Davis are very good as the by-the-books partners who seem to always be a step or two behind Hunt, earning a begrudging respect from the elder agent. But the biggest baddie is Gabriel, played with a chilling dead-eyed glare by Morales. He's a near unstoppable force of villainy, who doesn't hesitate in inflicting violence against anyone, especially Hunt's friends. It appears to be his only source of pleasure. A good counterpoint to this weapon is Clemente Eve's Paris, who does derive lots of joy from the chaos she creates. Cherney is quite effective as the morally ambiguous IMF chief, who seems to have his own sinister agenda, while Elves is carving a niche for himself as a smarmy bureaucrat who's in need of a comeuppance. Taking the directing chair for the third time is Christopher McQuarrie, who keeps the story moving with nearly as much energy as one of Cruise's manic sprints. Yup, he's burning up the shoe leather once again, making it feel like half of its 163-minute runtime. Yes, the bulk of the flick consists of several big action sequences, but McQuarrie doesn't let them veer too much into the silly or needlessly repetitive. The Rome chase is full of twists and even allows for some nice interplay between Hunt and Grace. Here that Fast X and the tiny car comedy outdoes Indy's track in Tangiers. Speaking of Dr. Jones, the Orient Express train sequence easily bests the Dial We prologue, which is perhaps its best moment. And the Venice Techno Dance Arena here has more gravitas than the similar setting in the recent John Wick opus. But unlike many of those other recent blockbusters, there's lots of fun to be had in between the fighting and driving as we get a greater understanding of the bond between the IMF, who now seems to be a mix of the A-Team, the Lone Ranger, the Magnificent Seven, and a touch of the Avengers, movies and TV show. Sure, the locations are stunning, but the main selling point continues to be Cruise's insistence in doing as much of the stunt work as possible. He wants us to know that he's not chilling in his trailer. It's almost as though he's the modern-day version of the silent movie thrill comic actors. Of course, Jackie Chan touched on that with his Chaplin-like agility in his early career, but Cruise takes it a bit further. In Ghost Protocol, he's riffing on Harold Lloyd in Safety Last as he climbs that towering skyscraper. With the big railway finale here, I was reminded of Buster Keaton's The General. And like those classics, many of the scenes will have you gripping those armrests. In short, this is a most worthy addition to the series, mixing a rip from the headline's menace, MacGuffin, you know, creating art, with new locales and deadlier dangers. Oh, and again, extra kudos for stating that the story is continued, right up front in the titles and promotions. Fast X ends on a cliffhanger leading to a couple more flicks, sheesh, and I love the new Spider-Verse dearly. But they shouldn't have lost the sprayed-on graffiti-style Part 1 after the first couple of teasers and a few toys. So, be like this flick and put it out there, studios. If only all the summer blockbusters was forthright, exciting, and fun as Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now, when does 2 arrive? 3.5 out of 4 Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1 is now playing in theaters everywhere. Review by Kate Markey. July 14, 2023. Maggie Smith and Kathy Bates play longtime friends in 60s Ballagher, Ireland, hoping to win a church talent contest for a pilgrimage to Lourdes, France, in Irish director Thaddeus O'Sullivan's dramedy The Miracle Club. Actually, there are 3 friends, with a third being a young neighbor, played by Agnes O'Casey. The women have differing reason for wanting to make the pilgrimage. 2 hope for a miracle and 1 wants a trip of lifetime. There is a 4th woman is on the trip, Chrissy, Laura Linney, the long-absent daughter of a recently deceased friend, who has returned after 4 decades in America for the funeral of her estranged mother. The Miracle Club is a well-meaning drama with dashes of comedy, but it is less about religion than you might assume for a movie about a trip to the religious site of Lourdes. Rather, it is more about self-reflection on long-held grudges, guilt and regrets, and the possibility of forgiveness and hope. While the film is warm, it is also predictable, although it is lifted by its remarkable cast, which includes Laura Linney and Stephen Rea. The Irish dramedy is based on a story by Jimmy Smallhorn, with a screenplay by Smallhorn, Timothy Prager and Joshua D. Moorer. Eileen, Kathy Bates, is one of the 2 hoping for a miracle. She has discovered a lump in her breast, and although she hasn't been to a doctor, she is sure it is cancer. So she is hoping for a miracle cure from Lourdes famous waters. She is also looking for a break from her stressful home life, with a chaotic house full of children and a lazy husband, Frank. Stephen Rea, who does nothing to help out. Young wife and mother Dolly, Agnes O'Casey, is hoping for a miracle for her school-age son, Daniel, Eric D. Smith, who has never spoken a word, and is determined to go to Lourdes despite opposition from her domineering husband George, Mark McKenna, who leaves all the care of the house, Daniel and their newborn baby entirely to his wife while treating her with dismissive disrespect. Lily, Maggie Smith, who has a bad leg, isn't looking for a cure or a miracle, but she dreams of visiting a site she always wanted to see, while she's still able to travel. Lily is haunted by the death of her only son Declan, who drowned in the sea 40 years ago, and she frequently visits his seaside memorial plaque, an obsession her needy husband, Neil Baggy, doesn't understand. The women live in a neighborhood that is a close-knit community, more like a village than part of a big city. But life is hard, particularly for women in this traditional, patriarchal era, and the women are full of regrets, resentments, disappointments and grudges. The lure of the trip is less religious devotion than the idea of travel to exotic France, to a famous place where miracles might happen. Pilgrimage site Lourdes is a perfect spot for this dream, a place where the faithful believe the waters have the power to heal, but also somewhere with a reputation as a kind of Catholic Disneyland, filled with touristy souvenir shops. The church talent show is run by the kindly priest Father Dermot Byrne, Mark O'Halloran, in the church hall. But Father Byrne is also overseeing a funeral, for a longtime friend of Lily and Eileen whose daughter left Ireland for America 40 years ago under a cloud of scandal. The long-absent daughter, Chrissy, Laura Linney, has now returned for the funeral, although she did not arrive in time to say goodbye to her estranged mother. When Chrissy turns up at the church hall where the talent contest is taking place, The reception she gets from long-ago friends Eileen and Lily is more than chilly hostile even, with sharp-tongued Eileen especially vicious in her snub. Yet all four women end up on the bus for the trip to Lourdes, along with the parish priest, who acts as tour director, and hopes for some kind of healing, emotional and spiritual, for the women. Despite Chrissy's unwelcome presence, Lily, Eileen and Dolly are excited about the trip, which includes a night in a hotel, likely the first time these working-class women have had that experience. The movie gets off to a slow start and has some stiff, awkward moments, particularly when the characters first get to Lourdes, but about halfway through it takes a turn towards a deeper, human story. The film is plagued by predictability, but it is lifted by its great cast, who deliver some sparkling moments despite it all. This is very much an ensemble film, but Agnes O'Casey, the great-granddaughter of legendary Irish playwright Sean O'Casey, is particularly impressive in her first feature film role. Maggie Smith is, as always, amazing, but her Lily is a far different, more reserved character than the Dowager Countess played in Downton Abbey, so fans expecting those verbal zingers will be largely disappointed. It is Kathy Bates Eileen who is the fiery one in this story, and Eileen peppers the air with some salty language, even laying into Mark O'Halloran's kindly priest in one drunken tirade. While the Dublin portion is shot on location, the Lourdes scenes aren't, with recreated locations and even green screen for some famous sites, which diminished its authenticity. Once again, the film leans on its cast to overcome its problems. The film also has a little 1960s-era feminist theme, with the wives going off and leaving their outraged, domestically helpless husbands to cope with taking care of the kiddies and the house, including diaper changes, shopping and cooking. Although, predictably, this leads to a new appreciation of what their wives deal with daily. These scenes back home also yield some nice comic bits, like a very funny Stephen Rea serving his brood a grey-looking stew while complaining about how hard he worked on it. While not everything goes smoothly for this gentle film about long-held grudges, self-reflection and potential forgiveness against the backdrop of the famous Catholic pilgrimage site, it does find its way to a warm if expected resolution by the end. The film is really aimed at a certain kind of audience, a more thoughtful, introspective one than an audience looking for an Irish old gal pals kick-up-your-heels comedy trip, along the lines of 84 Brady. With its salty language and pointed observations, it might not be for the most devout either. Although there is some snarky jibes, these women are, after all, Irish, those hoping for those sharp-as-glass zingers from Maggie Smith, which she delivered so well in Downton Abbey, won't find them here. Instead, it is Kathy Bates' character who has a sharp tongue, and she doesn't hesitate to use it to launch word bombs, even right there in the church hall. While this is not unquestioning travel out for Lourdes, it does treat the religious site with some care, so believers won't feel uncomfortable in that aspect. There are things that the Miracle Club does get right, like the gritty feel of the low-income Dublin neighborhood, which feels like a village apart from the city itself. The period fashions are well done, particularly for Agnes O'Casey's younger Dolly, as well as the sense of women running everything thanklessly for the clueless men, who dismiss their efforts until the women are gone on their trip. Another thing it captures well is the woman's anticipation about what might happen in Lourdes, a mix of religious dreams and real-world doubt. The excitement of the woman, whose lives were so hard, just anticipating a night in a hotel, something working-class women of that era might never have done before, is another touch of period realism. All that means that the Miracle Club is not for every audience. There is humor, but the film's thoughtful self-reflective message is the real point. The Miracle Club opens Friday, July 14th, in theaters. Rating, 3 out of 5 stars, and now the topper to one of this movie year's biggest trends. Sure, we've had comic book superheroes, action tentpoles, and even a couple of flicks based on TV shows, but who knew that 2023's box office would be turbocharged by Toy Stories? No, I'm not speaking of Woody and Buzz. No, we started the year with a horror hit based on a phony toy that's not named Chucky, M3 GAN. Then came the true story spy-like thriller about the creation of the video game Tetris. I consider it a toy, so naya. The stakes were raised considerably by another pixel powerhouse, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, followed by a new Transformers entry, also in that action tentpole category. And now, at last, the Queen has arrived. Yes, the perennial princess of the toy department shelves comes to the big screen, after a slew of straight-to-video releases and a few TV shows, and she looks fabulous at age 64. Cue the Beatles ditty. Of course, she's pretty in pink. Imagine Ed McMahon or Nicholson in The Shining. Here's Barbie. After a terrific nod to a cinema classic via a prologue narrated by Helen Mirren, you may have caught it in an early teaser. We're whisked away to the wondrous realm of Barbland. In the prettiest of the pink houses lives stereotypical Barbie, Margot Robbie, who is just beginning her day. After floating into her convertible, she cruises through the town to wave good morning to the other Barbies, even President Barbie, Issa Rae. Oh, and she's greeted by the spin-off toys, Skipper, Midge, and the awkward Alan, Michael Cera. Finally, we're at the beach for a visit from the adoring but dim Ken, Ryan Gosling, who's thrilled to see Barbie but furious at his rival, another Ken, Simu Liu, along with assorted other Kens. But he still gets an invite to Barbie's big nighttime rager. But the singing and dancing are nearly derailed when Barbie warbles a lyric questioning her mortality. This glitch continues into the next day, when Barbie endures several odd occurrences like morning bad breath and, to everyone's disgust, flat feet when she steps out of her stylish high heels. Confiding in her Barbie BFFs, they implore her to seek help from Weird Barbie, Kate McKinnon. Her prognosis: Barbie's human handler isn't playing with her correctly, and so Barbie must venture into the real world and find her. The trip gets a trippier when Ken stows away in her car. The duo is in for a wild journey as they deal with a woman named Gloria, America Ferrera, who works at the Doll HQ Mattel. She's a dream compared to her snarky preteen daughter Sasha, Ariana Greenblatt, and the excitable CEO, Will Ferrell. But all this pales to the radical rewiring of Ken himself, a personality change that threatens all the denizen dolls of Barbland. Could there be a more perfect casting choice than Robbie in the title role? 10 years ago she almost set movie screens afire as the trophy wife in The Wolf of Wall Street, but she was intent on being more than eye candy. Robbie has forged an impressive movie resume, carefully juggling dramatic and comedic roles. In this story, she really gets to showcase those skills. Sure, Barbie is bubbly and perky, but we see her confusion as the dark thoughts seem to engulf her. Robbie expresses that panic as she is overwhelmed by the chaos of the real world. She's more than up to the challenge, bouncing from zany comedy to getting her first pangs of heartache. Perfectly balancing her pathos is the inspired comic performance of Gosling. He's grabbed laughs before in Crazy Stupid Love and LA Land, but here he totally gives himself over to the buffoonish antics of the ultimate himbo, Ken. Yet, for all his goofy behavior, there's a childlike charm to him. Gosling somehow holds on to that even after Ken has a much different reaction to reality. Speaking of that setting, Ferrera as Gloria is the story's real dramatic anchor as the adult human who still has a sense of wonder about Barbie, but is hardened to the ways of society, highlighted in her rousing monologue about what the world expects of her gender, a riveting throw down the gauntlet moment. Greenblatt as her daughter Sasha makes her more than a cliched surly movie teen. Sure, she's wanting to spread her wings, but we see how Sasha still yearns to be on an adventure with mom, even beginning to admire and respect her. The film also benefits from the supporting work of several comic vets. Ferrell is still a manic man-child as the exec, but he never takes over the tale with shrill slapstick and makes his character more than the suit villain. McKinnon makes great use of her loopy, off-kilter persona as the Barbie who's been played too much, giving her a zany sing-song line delivery and using a near-marionette a floppy-bodied language and movement, almost like a certain scarecrow. Cera also has lots of fun with his nerdy screen image, earning chuckles every time he's awkwardly waving at the first-string toys. I won't spoil the identity of her role, but it's terrific to see Rhea Perlman as a warm, nurturing mystery woman. Huzzah to director Greta Gerwig for delivering an impressive solo directing hat trick, building on her terrific work on Lady Bird and Little Women to give us this intelligent fantasy farce that's also a keen social satire. I must mention that she also co-wrote this with Noah Baumbach, a fabulous filmmaker himself and her spouse. Bravo for addressing the many criticisms and controversies swirling around the iconic toy over the last few decades, using them to lay out a clear message of female empowerment, while never lecturing. Rather than having Barbie and her pals dashing around and evading the people all of the Toy Story flicks, they venture among with almost no secrecy, making the story a switcheroo on the Wizard of Oz with a pinch of splash. Plus it really has fun with the history of the toy franchise as we meet characters who never really caught on while making playful jabs at the product powerhouse. Oh, did I mention the eye-popping visual treats? Some that come close to the Spider-Verses? Barbie's suburban subdivision recalls so many of the big box please sets, with her closet resembling a full-scale fashion accessory flat box. Yes, the fashions are great callbacks to the classic looks, especially that black and white striped one-piece swimsuit in the opening prologue. The pace is breezy and bouncy thanks to a wonderful soundtrack of pop standards and hilarious original tunes. Now some of the themes and subplots may go over the heads of the youngest viewers, but those with memories of lazy afternoons creating adventures for the characters will really get a real nostalgic euphoria along with subtle societal parody. Really, this is a great time at the movies. Perfect for the summer, and to paraphrase the old ad line from Mattel, Barbie Broken Bar, it's swell. 3.5 out of 4. Barbie is playing in theaters everywhere. South Korea has been exporting a lot of high-octane action flicks in the past several years. They tend to emphasize hard-hitting stunts and gritty, dynamic fight choreography, largely eschewing the enhancements, or detriments, of CGI and fanciful wire work. That's been consistently true for both period pieces and contemporary crime fare. This title, Night of the Assassin, led me to expect another dose of slam-bang action. The reality turned out to be more contemplative for much of its running time, before wowing viewers with the inevitable climactic battles in grand style. In this pre-gun-era costume drama, Shin Hyun-jun stars as an An who is a rural region's top assassin. Business, efficient, no ideology or emotions. The film opens with his collapsing after another swift success, and learning that he has a life-threatening heart defect which can only possibly be treated with an extremely rare herb. His cardiac condition leaves him so fragile that he not only must quit his career, but even avoid vigorous sex. He wanders to a remote village, trying to hide his identity and live a peaceful life. He takes a menial restaurant job working for a widow, Lee Young-minutes, and the orphaned lad she'd adopted. Unfortunately, a large vicious gang brazenly rules the area, enabled by police and local officials who give them free rein due to bribery and/or fear. As must be the case in such movies, though An tries to remain anonymous, circumstances force him to respond to an imminent threat with his old skills. But it comes at a cost, since his heart keeps letting him down in key moments. The early going is slower, with more levity than expected, before the rest of the plot kicks it up several notches, with a slew of baddies presenting various types of menace for an exciting build-up to the epic final act. The fights are skillfully designed and performed in a package that's more athletic than gory. An's flat effect serves well for establishing the persona of an emotional outsider with an evolving, underlying noble concern for the oppressed villagers around him. He's got a code honor that means everything, including finishing whatever he promises to start, at any cost. The rest of the cast competently fills standard character slots on both sides of the law and economy. Director Jang Da-kwak only teases the action to come for quite a while before cranking out a bunch of genre-satisfying sequences, mostly wielding swords and knives skillfully. Not the start-to-finish thrill ride of many others, but a solid example of the first-rate camera and stunt talents finding steady employment in Korea. Night of the Assassin, aka The Assassin, in Korean with English subtitles, is available streaming starting Friday, July 21st, on Haya, and will be available on digital, DVD and Blu-ray starting on August 8. Rating, 3 out of 4 stars. To be honest, Michael Jai White headlines a lot of action flicks that many would consider beneath their taste level. But he's really good at these things and always fun to watch when you're in the mood for a good guy kicking a bunch of bad guy butts in a vehicle that allows your higher cerebral functions to relax and enjoy some time off from their usual duties. The Island is another from his formulaic wheelhouse. Among the many movies and TV series that have borne this title before, this one will rank as the most broken bar recent. White plays an LA cop who grew up on a tropical island. When he learns that his brother was killed, he returns to find the one what done him in. After he'd left to graze in a bigger pasture, the island had been taken over by a psycho mega-thug, Eduardo Costa, running a full range of illicit businesses that gave jobs to many but put all in fear of their lives, and rendered the police hopelessly overmatched. Costa quickly establishes shockingly sadistic methods for ruling his empire, never hesitating to dispatch any underlings who let him down. So anyone who has seen any of these action opuses, or is it OPA, knows what must happen from there. Some good people will be threatened and or killed en route to White's vanquishing the evil among them as he, Scott Adkins, Mark Dacascos, Olivier Gruner, Dolph Lundgren, et al. Have done so many times before. What matters is that White reliably delivers what his fans expect. The action sequences are frequent and gritty, with a slightly above-average gore component. As these things go, the tropical setting is another asset, providing a lovely backdrop for the decidedly lovely things that occur thereupon. Plus a sidebar of made-up exotic local culture in this made-up exotic locale. Now that you know what you're getting, skip it or adjust your brain downwards for this 90-minute piece of guilty pleasure viewing. The Island opens Friday, July 21st, in theaters and is available on demand and on digital. Rating: 2.5 out of 4 stars. Review by Kate Markey, July 24, 2023. Now I am become death, that destroyer of worlds is the famous quote from the Bhagavad Gita that physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer spoke upon witnessing the first denotation of a nuclear device. As the world entered the new era of nuclear weapons, Oppenheimer is Christopher Nolan's epic drama about Oppenheimer, his work on the Manhattan Project, and his treatment after the war. The biographical drama starts like a historical thriller and ends like a profound warning to the world, all set against the sweep of history that changed the world. Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning biography American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin, Nolan's epic film in fact opens with the reminder of that myth of the man who stole fire from the gods and was punished eternally for his deed. Oppenheimer explores the theoretical physicist's life, particularly his work on the race to build a nuclear bomb before the Nazi Germany, known as the Manhattan Project, and then the post-war aftermath, when Oppenheimer, haunted by the world-destructive weapon that he helped unleash on the world, sought to rein in that danger, which pitted him against a military eager to launch the Cold War arms race, making Oppenheimer a target for communist hunting investigations. J. Robert Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy, was the brilliant theoretical physicist who was selected to run the Manhattan Project, the secret U.S. project to beat Nazi Germany to building an atomic bomb. The young physicist is recruited for that job by Lieutenant General Leslie Groves Jr. Matt Damon. Oppenheimer seemed an unlikely choice, the New York-born son of a wealthy Jewish family and an autodidact who read literature and poetry, spoke several languages and read the Hindu sacred text, the Bhagavad Gita, in the original Sanskrit. Yet Oppenheimer actively seeks the job, eager to help defeat the Nazis, partly because of what was happening to Jewish people in Europe. Oppenheimer shared his family's left-leaning political views, and even partied with some communists, but none of that was remarkable or uncommon in that time period, when Americans were still unaware of what was really happening in Stalin's Soviet Union. Immediately, Oppenheimer realizes the Manhattan Project has an unexpected edge over the Nazis, despite Germany's over-a-year head start on developing a nuclear bomb. Hitler's hatred of the Jews will drive the Germans to purge Jewish scientists from their nuclear bomb research, and Oppenheimer, having visited Europe as a student, knows many of the top physicists are Jewish or have Jewish backgrounds or links. Oppenheimer sets out to recruit as many of those Jewish refugee physicists as possible, using Hitler's hatred against him. And recruit them he does, including Edward Teller, Benny Safdie, Niels Bohr, Kenneth Branagh, and Hans Bethe, Gustav Skarsgård, along with Jewish Americans Richard Feynman, Jack Quaid, and Robert Serber. Michael Angarano, Enrico Fermi, Danny DeFerrari, wasn't Jewish but his wife was, causing them to flee fascist Italy, and he joins the effort too. Although Oppenheimer knew Albert Einstein, Tom Conti, and the two were friends, he did not invite Einstein to join the project, but Einstein does appear in the film at a couple of points, and has an important part in this film's powerful ending. For the secret project, Oppenheimer selects a remote location in the New Mexico desert, Los Alamos, near an area he has vacationed many times, a region he loves. The desert landscape creates a perfect canvas for Nolan to build this thrilling chase for the bomb. The impressive cast also includes Robert Downey Jr. as Lewis Strauss, the non-scientist who heads the Princeton Academy that includes Einstein. Josh Hartnett as Ernest Lawrence, as in Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, and David Krumholtz as Oppenheimer's friend Isidore Robbie. Emily Blunt plays Oppenheimer's wife Kitty, a biologist frustrated by the era's confining roles of wife and mother, and Florence Pugh as Oppenheimer's troubled ex-lover, leftist psychiatrist Jean Tatlock. Many other recognizable faces appear, in a host of small roles. Nolan's film, perhaps his best, is a true epic and its length is epic too, at about 3 hours. But Oppenheimer is so engrossing and tense that one does not feel the running time. This excellent film has much to recommend it. Its riveting and significant content, timely message about ethical consequences of technology, its outstanding performances from an impressive cast, particularly Cillian Murphy, its powerful and largely accurate historical storytelling, plus its visual artistry and technical achievements, to mention a few of its admirable aspects, meaning that it is hard to know where to start in describing the film. Those who know Nolan's work will find that Oppenheimer is very much in his wheelhouse, perhaps the film he was always meant to make. Oppenheimer is divided in two parts, which Nolan labels fission and fusion, for the pre-bomb and post-bomb world. The epic starts out as biography and a gripping thriller, as the young Oppenheimer ascends and the Manhattan Project races to build the first atomic bomb. Post-war, it shifts to taut drama about his fall, as the now famous Oppenheimer is haunted with guilt over giving mankind the power to destroy the world, and seeks to use his fame to limit nuclear weapons, which angers the Pentagon, eager to start the arms race, and makes him the target of an investigation in the rising tide of the Cold War and a shifting political climate. The pivot point between these two parts is the testing of the first nuclear device, Trinity, in which what had been theoretical suddenly becomes horrifying reality, prompting that famous quote from Oppenheimer. The film jumps back and forth in time, as Nolan films sometimes do, and has 3 threads it follows. But there is no trouble following the narrative, even if the significance of a single scene might not be immediately clear, and the director aids that by presenting one of these threads as in black and white. 2 of the threads are focused on Oppenheimer, before and after the Trinity nuclear test, while the third, in black and white, is centered on a congressional hearing to confirm Lewis Strauss for a cabinet-level post. What that thread has to do with the story is not clear until later in this film, but its significance is powerful. From the start, ethical and moral questions are part of the equation. Why try to create the most destructive weapon never seen? In one scene, the physicists debate that question, but one fact looms over all: Hitler's Germany is already working on such a weapon. If they can't be stopped, the next best thing is to get the weapon first. I don't know if we can be trusted to have such a weapon, but I know the Nazis can't, Oppenheimer says in the film. The film's pivotal moment is the test of the first nuclear device, the Trinity test, where what had been only theoretical becomes devastatingly real, and changes the world forever. It is a heart-stopping, showstopper sequence that is the cinematic highlight as well as pivot point of the film, where the realization of the true significance of what they have done causes Oppenheimer to utter that famous quote. Nolan handles this immersive sequence with brilliance, giving the audience an unsettling feeling of being there in the moment. The lack of awareness of the danger of radiation actually poses is one reason some scenes are so harrowing to watch. The scenes of the detonation are riveting, but the film does not include footage of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as the story is told from Oppenheimer's view and it is not something he witnessed. Once the two bombs are created, they are whisked away, and Oppenheimer learns about their use and targets the same time and way as everyone else on the radio. Instead, there is a sequence after the bombs are dropped, where Oppenheimer speaks to the Manhattan Project scientists and staff. As he speaks, shots of the jubilant people in the crowd sometimes slowly morph into images that suggest the bomb's victims, a haunting, horrifying effect that reflects Oppenheimer's inner turmoil at that world-changing moment. Post-war, Oppenheimer finds himself suddenly famous but consumed with guilt, and tries to use that fame to press for limits on nuclear weapons, hoping the horror of the atomic bombs will put an end to all wars. But not everyone has grasped how the world has been transformed by the new technology, and Oppenheimer fails to see the shifting political landscape of the coming Cold War, making him a target. The post-war second half adopts a deeper, more thoughtful tone, more like a courtroom drama, as it examines how Oppenheimer was treated after the war. Suddenly, Oppenheimer is world famous, and the scientist tries to use that fame to press the government of the nation he served so well to take seriously the danger of new power unleashed on the world. He wants them to grasp, as one character notes in the film, that this is not a weapon but a new reality for the world. But even after Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the devastating effects of ionizing radiation emerged, many do not see it. Instead, Oppenheimer's activities, particularly his opposition to the development of a hydrogen bomb, angers the Pentagon, focused the dawning Cold War and arms race. The film basically gets the history and science right, although it is careful not to overload the audience with the latter. However, this is important to note: this is basically biography, told from the subject's view, and not a definitive exploration of the Manhattan Project and the resulting bombings. That means that some may feel that there are things it overlooks or doesn't cover in sufficient depth, but historical completeness was never the intent of the film. As the film depicts, Oppenheimer did not pick the targets, and after the Trinity test, all control is taken out of his hands. Oppenheimer learns about the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki the same way every American did, on the radio. Much of the reason the film is so immersive and gripping is how Nolan shot the film, which is analog, on 65mm film in large format 15x IMAX, with 10 times the resolution of standard film, and the highest resolution film ever used. This is a must-see epic that is best seen on a large IMAX screen. In 19 lucky locations around the US, it is also being shown in 70mm format, the best choice. Oppenheimer's lack of understanding of the political shift underway post-war as the Cold War dawns is illustrated in a scene where he meets President Truman. Gary Oldman, the physicist, wants to take the opportunity to speak out against developing the more powerful hydrogen bomb, but Truman isn't open to that topic. Frustrated, Oppenheimer tells Truman he feels he has blood on his hands, a grave error in speaking to the president who ordered the dropping of those bombs, who abruptly ends the meeting. The scene also illustrates the way in which Oppenheimer became his own worst enemy in the post-war world he helped create, as well as the target of an angered Pentagon, a theme further expanded as Oppenheimer faced an investigation about renewing his security clearance, where questions about his pre-war left-leaning political associations, once considered inconsequential, were raised anew in the commie-hunting atmosphere. The film culminates in a powerful sequence that brings all its threads together and leaves us stunned. Oppenheimer seems a sure thing for Oscar nominations, an engrossing, brilliant epic that mixes a rise and fall biography of a complicated genius, with tremendous ticking clock historical thriller followed by a revealing drama about a struggle over a technology with the power to destroy the humankind, and the ethical choices around it. Oppenheimer opens Friday, July 21, in theaters. Rating: 4 out of 4 stars. Well, from the sea of pink still filling multiplex lobbies all across the country, it appears that moviegoers are wild about toy property-based movies. Perhaps we can officially call it a genre, and this new film could be a subgenre as it details the creation of a beloved plaything in, well, not a docudrama, but more like a docu-comedy. This new flick is perhaps closer to Tetris, same producers, with elements of Air and BlackBerry. Making it more engaging is that it was something of a pop culture craze, maybe even a fad, and it also benefits from a cast with some major comedy creds. They're all involved with the tiny dolls that collectors thought were a big investment, which, in turn, created and inflated the Beanie Bubble. That refers, of course, to the Beanie Babies, a 1990s sensation spearheaded by company spokesman, and face of the fad, Ty Warner, Zach Galifianakis. But this isn't a standard biopic about the man on the tags. Instead, the film is focused on 3 women who made a big impact on his personal and business life. The structure jumps about through a decade or so timeline, so I'll zero in on the first of the ladies, Ty's neighbor in their high-rise apartment building, Roberta aka Robbie. Elizabeth Banks. She's rushing between her job as an auto mechanic and her duties at home where she tends to her wheelchair-bound hubby. Then Ty befriends her and brings her into his fledgling toy business, a niche stuffed version of Himalayan cats. Robbie proves to be a superb saleswoman and is pivotal in the idea to make smaller animals plushes that aren't stuffed to the seams with foam, maybe more like the beans in beanbag chairs, though very floppy. Soon she and Ty are a real couple as the line grows. Enter med student Maya, Geraldine Viswanathan, who is hired on as an intern. Ty enlists her to work the desk at a toy trade show. There he sees her using a hooked reel in retailers. Maya cons them with stories of investors making tons of money by scooping up these limited edition variants whose value increases, you know, like Action Comics #1. Besides having the gift of gab, Maya is forward-thinking and designs a beanie site for the just-emerging World Wide Web. This is also fueled by another burgeoning site, eBay. The expansion, and fractured relationship with Robbie, leads to Shilya, Sarah Snook, who is a lighting designer working on Ty's big fancy new mansion. After a terse first meeting, Ty begins to romantically pursue the single mother of 2 adorable preteen girls, who contributed ideas for new beanies. The lives of all 4 intertwine as the stock keeps rising and Maya awaits the inevitable collapse. But those critters are too cute, so it can't happen, right?